But I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Okay, Simon, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. And what do people normally wear?
Clothes.
Exactly. So now Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Clothes keep us warm, they look good, and if we go out without them, the neighbors will talk. So it's important to know how to get dressed. Here's how it's done. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. If you're wearing a tie, it goes over, round, through, and pull tight. Tuck your shirt into your pants and zip up your fly. Socks going first, then shoes right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops. The rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears.
I love bunnies.
Good to know. Now remember, spots don't go with stripes, socks don't go with sandals, and if you've tucked in your shirt, wear a belt. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
So you see, son, good manners are very, very important. Someday, many years from now, when you're a grown-up, you'll be a man. And when you are, you should be a gentleman. Do you want me to go through it one more time?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open for ladies. If a door's shut, then knock first. Don't burp, don't swear, don't speak with your mouth full, don't reach across people's plates, keep your elbows off the table.
What table?
And don't interrupt. While we're at it, don't stare, don't use foul language, don't call people names, but do remember people's names. Always share your toys, play nice, and cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. On the bus, give up your seat to anyone who has trouble standing bottom line. Treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
Hey, there he is. How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand or what?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you okay?
I'm having a stroke.
Your face looks weird, too.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you having a seizure or something?
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T, F, face drooping, A, arm weakness, or S, speech difficulty, then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment, and that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs. Face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
Or if that resume was from someone who
worked 12-hour shifts at the recycling company with my dad, who's 72. That taught me a work ethic that I carry with me every day.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone.
Growing up where I did, a lot of things could have gotten in the way of my goals. But I learned to push through, and that's what I bring to work every day.
So maybe it's time we look beyond the resume and look to Grads of Life. Discover new ways to develop great talent that are so much more than what's on paper at gradsoflife.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
The Knicks lose Game 7 versus the Pacers 130-109. The Rangers will face the Panthers in the Eastern Conference Finals tonight. Game number 1 and the NBA and NHL Conference Finals previews as the Celtics and the Pacers, the Mavericks and the Timberwolves, the Rangers and the Panthers, and the Oilers and Stars. Much, much more here on a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. Doc Rivers is going to have Damian Lillard run very fast out of town. Does he help them win? You're under 500. Aaron Judge helps the Yankees win. You're paying the player $300 million. You better be sure that guy's going to help you get over the hump. For some reason, this guy is completely lost on calling plays. Maybe he's a therapist. Did you see Lamar Jackson cry to the referee? No, he didn't. We are back for a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Daryl Marks, my co-host, Mr. Speedy Petey. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings for all our shows is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Speedy, how was your weekend?
It was a good week. It was a good weekend. Unfortunately for the Knicks, that definitely was not an ideal circumstance. They forgot how to play defense all of a sudden. Everyone was getting hurt, and it was a very disappointing Game 7 for me. But enjoyed the rest of it. Was feeling a little under the weather today at the beginning. I was dealing with some chest pains and some gassiness issues, but much better now. And now my nerves shift to the New York Rangers.
A little stomach issues.
Yeah.
What were you eating?
Yesterday.
A little chili.
No, I had
little onions, some mushrooms.
I did have some onions. I had a little meatloaf, a little pork.
A little pork. You know, how big was the pork?
Not that big actually.
Yeah, you like that big pork, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I figured you liked the big pork. I figured that it has to have that.
It's the quality of the meat.
The quality of the meat. Yes, you hear it from Speedy. Did you hear that, Scoops? The quality of the meat for the great Speedy Petey. So enjoy the meat. Make sure that it's quality, and if it's big, that's just a quality part that you like.
Yeah, well, it could be depending on how hungry I am.
Well, if you're not hungry, you share it with the dog.
Do you bend the meat?
Yeah.
No, I don't bend the meat. No, Carl, I'm not rooting for the Panthers.
Well, I am.
I know.
Well, I was a Panther fan growing up. I was for like 5 years, when Van Beesbrook was playing for the Florida Panthers. At that point, I was a front runner when I was a kid. And then I figured, hey, you know what? why not be an Islander fan? You know, so, and that was
welcome
the worst,
to 20 years of torture.
That was the worst choice I've ever made in my sports fan history. So there you go. For all you Islander fans out there, good luck. Enjoy the offseason. Hopefully, Matty Martin gets another kid. As we know, Boomer Esiason is now a grandfather.
Well, train him to skate now. The Islanders need team speed.
Well, that's true. I do need team speed. Speedy, you should jump on my back.
That would slow you down.
No, that would give me that surge, that charge that would get me right over the top.
Good for me or good for you?
Find a scientist that can confirm.
Is it good for me or good for you?
Find a scientist that can
Is
confirm.
it good for me?
I have no clue, but based on basic science, that some
what is
extra body weight on your body would not make you run faster or skate faster.
We have Steph Curry that doesn't believe that we ever stepped on the moon. We have Kyrie Irving that thinks the earth is flat. I mean, there are a lot of athletes.
Okay, don't fall into that trap of thinking that extra body weight on top of you is going to make you run faster.
How do you know? It might give me that surcharge. I mean, what happens if I had water on top of me? You think I could skate faster?
I guess it's liquid. I suppose you could. I suppose.
So liquid, it's okay, but a human body, not a chance.
No.
All right. So Speedy doesn't think I could skate faster if he was on my back.
No.
At 7:30, we'll be talking to former Rangers and Islanders GM and the last GM for the New York Rangers Stanley Cup Championship. Our friend Neil Smith will be joining us. This is great. This is a perfect day. Game number 1 for the New York Rangers, and we're going to have Neil Smith on the show. That's going to be fun. A little bit later in the show at 9:30, we'll be talking to Draft Countdown NFL analyst Brian Bosarge. He will be joining us for the first time on our show. We're very excited to have him on, as we've had his partner on quite a few times. So,
Shane Hallam, our guru from the 7-year drafts.
That's right. One of the best in the business, as always. Knicks lose game number 7 versus the Pacers, 130-109. What do the New York Knicks need to do in the offseason that could bring them over the top? So we will get into that. The Rangers will face the Panthers tonight for the Eastern Conference Championship and title. So I know all the Ranger fans, including the Beav, is probably popping his popcorn, wearing his jockstrap, and if they win, maybe he'll be hanging out with Speedy later on tonight, right?
I doubt it.
NBA and NHL conference previews. We'll get into the Celtics and the Pacers, which was a very, very close game. Overtime win by the Celtics last night. So we'll get into that. Mavericks versus the Timberwolves. I think that's going to be a fun series. Rangers, Panthers, and Oilers and Stars. I was surprised the Oilers won. But again, Connor McDavid is a beast, and that's just all I'm going to say about that. Reports say that Darius Garland will likely request a trade if the Cavs give Donovan Mitchell an extension. So it doesn't look like Darius Garland is a very big fan of Donovan Mitchell. So maybe that's why he was sitting out half the season. The Pirates will induct Barry Bonds into their Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. At least somebody's inducted.
Yeah.
To me, he should be a Hall of Famer. This guy's the greatest baseball player I've ever seen. I don't care what he did. We've had so many baseball players on the show saying that steroids should be allowed in the game because it keeps them on the field. I just don't understand it. Former Angels infielder David Fletcher being investigated for gambling with an illegal bookie. So another Angel, ladies and gentlemen.
And it's the same bookie as a particular one's interpreter.
So maybe he was hanging out with Mr. Ohtani. So I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't care what anybody says. Ohtani had something to do with that. And for anybody to think that he didn't, it's ridiculous. And it just shows you how stupid you really are.
Fletcher came up in the same year as Ohtani, too.
That's right. Number 1 ranked golfer, Scottie Scheffler, arrested after tackling a cop at the PGA Championship. So very interesting story. I'm going to say this. That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Okay.
He was in jail, then 2 hours later he's golfing.
You know what it felt like? Happy Gilmore 2.
Yeah,
that's
pretty much.
And there is a Happy Gilmore 2 coming out with Adam Sandler. So
nice.
Yes. So it will be aired on Netflix, and that should probably air by the end of the year. That's what I'm hearing. Maybe the beginning of next year. So Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore 2 will be out next year or maybe the end of this year. So it'll be fun. So why don't we get into it? The New York Knicks, which has been the talk of the town, and what are they going to do in the offseason? And that's the story right now. The Knicks were so close, but so far, as Jalen Brunson breaks his hand in game number 7. And listen, it was a great season for the New York Knicks. It was a fantastic year. If you're a New York Knicks fan, you should be happy for what the Knicks accomplished this year. And everybody's going to say, well, they accomplished the same thing last year. They can't get over the hump. There was a lot of injuries this year, and there's a lot of talent on this Knicks team. The Knicks lost to the Pacers 130-109 in game number 7. The loss of OG Anunoby very early in the game and Jalen Brunson in the third quarter to the injuries. The Pacers shot 67.1% from the field, the highest total for a team in Game 7 NBA history. The Athletic reports that the teams have called the Knicks wondering what they're going to do with Julius Randle. SNY's Ian Begley reports that the Knicks and Jalen Brunson are close to a new extension for 4 years and $160 million. The Pacers are now playing in their first conference finals since 2014, while the Knicks haven't made a conference final since 2000. This was a great season for the New York Knicks. Anybody that's going to hate on what the Knicks did, shame on you. Shame on you. What the Knicks did was very impressive. With the injuries that they had, no Julius Randle, which we expected, and even if he did play, he's the bricklayer. He's never healthy. Losing Mitchell Robinson as early as they did in the playoffs really affected him, and Mitchell Robinson can't stay healthy. Losing Bogdanovich after game number 1 in the round number 1 against the 76ers was a big loss. He was finally figuring things out. He was finally shooting the ball very well, and they lose him. And then losing OG Anunoby really in the third game of this series against Indiana. And the Knicks were up 2-0 when they lost him. If the Knicks had a healthy OG Anunoby, this could be different. It would have been a different series. Maybe the Knicks win in 5 or 6. But nevertheless, you can't. What if this game, this series, what we know about the New York Knicks and what we know about their future is it's very bright. And a guy like Jalen Brunson taking a 4-year, $160 million contract, that tells you that he is here for the long haul. He wants to win a championship here with the Knicks. He's taking less money. This man could obviously make over $300 million after this next year, his final year with the New York Knicks. He can take that big contract, that super contract. If he is an all-NBA player next year, he could take about $400 million from the Knicks. He is not willing to do that. He's willing to sign the extension this offseason, take the $160 million, and move on with this team. If you sit back and you wonder what the Knicks need to do in the offseason, there's many different things they could do. They do have 3 first-round draft picks going into this offseason, so they can wiggle and jiggle it, Speedy. You know all about that, right? No, I don't. Well, you do. No. And when you have to go to the bathroom, you wiggle and jiggle it?
Sure.
Okay, so there you go. You know a lot about it. But the New York Knicks have a chance to move pieces and bring in a superstar. And I know everybody's going to sit there and say, well, the Timberwolves have a ton of them. And right now, the Timberwolves are in a very good position. Shout out Edwin, a fantastic post. Keep listening to us. When you sit back and you wonder what the Knicks could do in the offseason, there's quite a few things that if you're a fan of the New York Knicks, you can pick out of a hat. And the one thing that I would look at in the offseason is Karl Anthony Towns. The Timberwolves cannot afford Anthony Edwards, where they're going to have to give him a super contract after this coming year and having the season that he's had. They're going to have to pay him. And obviously, Rudy Gobert getting the money that he's getting. He's a big man. They don't need another big man. They have an athletic big man who's playing very well in Karl Anthony Towns. But Karl Anthony Towns has, 3 years left on his contract. He, right now, at this point, is a tradable piece that you can get a lot back for. Now, what could the Knicks give up to bring in a Karl Anthony Towns? What I can say is Karl Anthony Towns was Leon Rose's client for many, many years. And Karl Anthony Towns has been in the Knicks' mouths over the last 2 years. They've been trying to make moves with the Timberwolves to bring Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns hasn't stayed healthy in the last 2 years. If Karl Anthony Towns goes into the offseason and the Timberwolves win a championship, I don't know if they bring him back. They've won their championship. They've never won a championship. They need to move a piece that is worth trading, where you can get a lot back for their future, because let's be honest, they don't have a future because they traded away when they took on Rudy Gobert's contract. They have a chance right now. If they do, to land a Karl Anthony Towns, they're automatically the best team in the East. Automatically. When you look at the roster and you look at what they could bring back next year. Now, Julius Randle would have to be in that trade. They are going to have to match those contracts. They're going to have to do that. They're going to have to give up maybe one or two youngsters, McBride being one of them. McBride could be a piece that they were going to have to move on from. Now, McBride is a good young player. They gave him a 3-year, $11 million contract. If you match that up with Julius Randle, who's making about $29, $30, that's about what Karl Anthony Towns is making, $40 million. And you're going to have to give away draft stock. You might have to give away 4 first-round draft picks, maybe 5, to get a Karl Anthony Towns. But that would be the piece that the Knicks would need if they plan to move forward next year and be a contender. You look at this roster right now, I don't know if you bring back Hartenstein. And I'm not saying Hartenstein wasn't a big part of this team in the second half of the season, because he was. Losing Mitchell Robinson for a significant amount of time after he hurt his ankle and broke his ankle, they needed a guy to step up. Hartenstein was the guy. But Hartenstein is going to be a big name out there if a team needs a big man, a starting big man. Hartenstein right now would not start for the Knicks next year. He wouldn't. Mitchell Robinson would. So you're going to pay Hartenstein between $16 and $20 million a year to be a backup? That doesn't make sense. The Knicks need to make a decision on what they're going to do with Hartenstein and OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby right now is a guy that already came out and said he'll take less money. He came out and said that. He will take less money to come back to the New York Knicks. The thing is, what we saw against the Pacers was a lot of mistakes. They made a lot of mistakes. They let a lot of no-name guys like McConnell outplay some of the players. He outplayed McBride. He outplayed Brunson in certain games. McConnell was a good player, not a great player. He's a journeyman. You don't let a journeyman outplay your best player or defend your best player the way he did. And I will say this. Tom Thibodeau needs to stop running his players out of the game. He has been doing this for years. He's been running these guys rampant. Look at what happened to Julius Randle. He hurt his shoulder. Why do you think he hurt his shoulder? Why did you think he tore his rotator cuff? The reason why is because Thibodeau's playing him 42, 45 minutes a game. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart led the playoffs this year with 46 minutes played. He played almost every single minute. You can't win like that. Your backup players are not giving you enough. To me, Indiana's secondary players outplayed the Knicks secondary players, which, by the way, were the Knicks secondary players were the best in the East this year.
I think they outscored them by 25 points in Game 6 and Game 7.
They couldn't rebound against Indiana. Yeah. Indiana was middle of the league type of rebounding team this year. The Knicks were a top 3 rebounding team. Yes, they lost Mitchell Robinson, but they didn't have Mitchell Robinson all year. Yes, they lost Julius Randle, but they didn't have Julius Randle for the last 2 months. They were still the best rebounding team, second best rebounding team in the league. Why did they let Indiana out-rebound them?
And this is the problem, too, with having to have guards play a lot of forward-type roles as well. And that's where I think when you brought up Karl Anthony Towns, whether that kind of thing will be available or not, that type of star stretch 4 is exactly the perfect missing piece to the rest of this team, because the wing depth that they have is still very good on paper. But you saw Anunoby when he was healthy, but Hart and McBride, all 3 of them have had to play 4s at certain points during the playoffs, because Hartenstein in game 3, he played well in game 4, but he got in a lot of foul trouble. This game, he got in a lot of foul trouble, and he was not as good on defense. He was great with rebounding, but not as good with his raw defense.
The problem with the Knicks is there's no bigs on the team that could shoot threes. Harnstein can't shoot threes. Donovan Mitchell Robinson, I always say Donovan Mitchell, but that's because I wish he was a Knick. But Mitchell Robinson can't shoot threes. They don't have any bigs that could shoot threes except Julius Randle. He's the only big that can actually shoot a 3 on this team. Right. And it's a big problem. And to me, Donte DiVincenzo played well in game 7. There's no question he did. But here's the problem with a guy like Donte DiVincenzo. He's hot and cold every other day. He can't play at the top of the game the way he played in game number 7. He averaged, what did he score? 39 points in game 7? Mm-hmm. But throughout the series, what did he average? 13, 12 points? You can't win like that. Consistency is what's going to help the Knicks win. They don't have any consistency. Even Jalen Brunson wasn't consistent in this series.
Yeah, I think Alec Burks was the second highest scorer in game 7.
Which is crazy.
They're all the same position.
A guy that sat for almost 2.5 months.
Yeah.
2.5 months. Never played. What did he play for, like 8 minutes since he's been a Knick? Since he's been back with the Knicks? And then he comes back in game 5, and he's been the Knicks' leading scorer in game 5, game 6, and game 7, really. Well, game 7 was Donte, but throughout the 3 games that he took over, he was the best scorer the Knicks had.
Yeah, they should have been playing him more in game 7 because McBride was really
Thank
struggling.
you, Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, he was really struggling, McBride, offensively. They should have taken him out a lot earlier in the third quarter than they did. And I'll give McBride credit the way he stepped in game 5 and when he was starting out of nowhere, which was kind of surprising. But the last 2 games after that offensively, not good.
No, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And if you're a Knicks fan, I know a lot of Knicks fans are upset. I mean, Gavin, he works with me. We's a big-time Knicks fan. He's a dispatcher over there, or whatever he does over there. He's a diehard Knicks fan, and he has nothing to say. And we'll get him next year. We'll get him next year. If the Knicks go into the season with the same team they have, they're probably a second-round exit. That's what they are. Even with Julius Randle, because we already know what Julius Randle could do in the playoffs. He's hot and cold. And that's probably every single one of these players. Even Jalen Brunson was hot and cold in both of those series. Yes, he had how many 40-point games? 6. Yeah. But that was against the 76ers. A 76er team that didn't have a healthy Joel Embiid. Do you think that the 76ers are going to be as bad as they were this year? Probably not. If Joel Embiid's 100% healthy next year. Joel Embiid killed the Knicks. They couldn't defend against him. And again, the Knicks were letting some players like Haliburton outplay them. I would have trapped Haliburton, made all the other guys outplay him. All the other guys, all the other secondary players outplay Haliburton on Indiana. But Haliburton, you gave him shots. You gave him open looks. You don't give the best player open looks. And that's the problem right now for the New York Knicks. That's what the Knicks need to research in the offseason. I think Leon Rose has been a great GM. If you're a Knicks fan, you should be very happy. He's been the best GM the Knicks have ever had. I mean, everything he's touched, besides maybe a little weed here and there. I mean, we can name a couple of them. But pretty much everything that he's traded for or brought in or signed, it's worked out. Even the contracts have been great. They fit. And I'm telling you, this is a big culture boost when you see players like Jalen Brunson take a 4-year, $160 million contract. It's great because it says to the team and the organization, I'm here to win. I'm here to win. Bring me another player. Bring me another superstar to play with me because it's not Julius Randle. I'm telling you, if the Knicks bring back Julius Randle and think that Julius Randle is going to be the guy that's going to take him over the top, he's not.
No, and he's had enough playoff inefficiency to make that the case of he can't be thought of that way as that number 2 consistent option either. Now, was the concept of what Julius Randle brings missing from the Knicks in the last 2 games? Yes, I would say a stretch 3 or 4 shooter like that would have definitely been nice to have. Was it the only reason the Knicks lost game 7? No. I think most of the game 7 issues were on defense more than they were on offense. And that has to do with Anunoby getting hurt. That has to do with a lot of things. But nevertheless, that that was the main issue. The Knicks offense wasn't great, but they were still good enough to win a lot of game sevens. A lot of game sevens usually are lower scoring as it is in the NBA, and they just had no defense whatsoever. And that kind of thing is not fully on Julius Randle getting hurt, or that's a combination of all the other injuries. And you're right, they can't make that kind of thing as be a priority and just settle for that and say, all right, well, let's run it back with Randle healthy this year and expect the same results.
The Rangers advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in the last 3 seasons, beating the Hurricanes in 6 games. Chris Kreider got a hat trick, scoring all 3 of his goals in the third period. It is the 7th playoff hat trick for the Rangers since 1994, and the first since Darius Garland did it in 2015. Reports say that both top defensemen, Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren, have both been playing through injuries. The Rangers will now face the Florida Panthers, featuring the matchups of 2 goaltenders that are top of the league, top of really the top 3 playoff goaltenders with statistics. The Rangers, despite winning the President Trophy, are a betting underdog for the 2nd consecutive series. I will say this. Congratulations to the New York Rangers. I am not going to hate on the New York Rangers, even though a lot of people would think that I'm going to make fun of them. I am not a Ranger fan. I'm not going to sit here and throw the Rangers under the bus. Congratulations to them. They outplayed a team that they were better than. But I'm going to tell you this. They did not play a good goalie in the first round, and they didn't play a good goalie in Frederick Anderson in the second round. That's the big problem. And you're going into a series. Now, obviously, Bobrovsky has not been the top player, the top goalie he was last year. He isn't. He's also 37, 38. He's getting older. He's a little bit on the older side. So maybe the Rangers have the advantage in the goalie position. Maybe not. Shesterkin has never played in a conference finals. He's never. This is his first. Right? Am I right?
No, they did 2 years ago. They lost to Tampa.
Did he play the whole series?
Yep.
No, he didn't.
No, he got benched in the Pittsburgh series. He was fine after that.
So this is his second. And he didn't look good in that.
No.
Okay? So this is his second time. So I'm sorry. I thought it was his first. It's his second time. Shesterkin needs to show up in this series. He is very, very important. If the Rangers plan to beat the Florida Panthers, Shesterkin needs to stand on his head. Henrik Lundqvist did it, and that's why they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. They did lose against Los Angeles. They were the better team. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say this. What we have seen for the New York Rangers and from the New York Rangers is the depth that they have. They have a tremendous amount of depth. Chris Kreider has been fantastic. He's been their best playoff player for the last 3-4 years. Oh, yeah. He's been everything to them, shorthanded-wise, power play-wise, even 5-on-5. The Rangers are one of the worst 5-on-5 teams in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They cannot play 5-on-5 hockey the way they did against the Carolina Hurricanes. If they do that, they lose.
Yeah, they outscored by 6 goals, 5-on-5.
They cannot do that against a better Florida Panther team. They're much more talented. They can score in many different ways. They have defensemen that can score, and they have a goaltender that can absolutely shut you down.
And they have a lot of physicality. They're one of the tougher teams in the league. Defensive depth-wise is even better than they were last year, too, which is a scary thought as it is. Physical identity, they traded for Vladimir Tarasenko at the trade deadline, ex-Ranger from last year. So that's going to be a very tough matchup. The Rangers, I think, do have the advantage when it comes to speed on the second and third lines after that, and maybe the Rangers could try to take advantage of that. But they have to get that forecheck going right away and be able to outmuscle this Florida Panthers team that's going to make it very hard. As you saw in the Bruins series, the Bruins are a tough team, too, and the Florida Panthers made it look like they were not a tough team.
And Panarin has to have a good series. He has to have a good series. He needs to show up. And everybody keeps saying to Zibanejad, the thing about Mika Zibanejad and what makes him so great is what he can do besides offense. He can play defense. He's a good penalty killer. He doesn't need to score goals. He just needs to play his game. If he does that, I think the Rangers could beat the Florida Panthers. There's no question. Their defense has played well. Their team defense has played. Hedl will be back in this series. So that's something that the Rangers could benefit from. Do they move him to the first line? Do they move him to the second line? He hasn't played in 2 or 3 months. So I don't know. You might have to ease him into the game. And I'm going to tell you this. The Rangers have the better coach. There's no doubt about it. Peter Laviolette is the better coach. He's won a Stanley Cup. So he understands how to win a Stanley Cup. So, and I'm going to say this, Trocheck is the piece that if he shows up in this series and plays his game, the way he loves to play his game, that tough, raggy, go to the net, put the puck towards the net and hope it hits and bounces off somebody. If he plays his game and that's his strength and he does that, I think the Rangers will win this series. Now, I think the Florida Panthers are a better team, and that's why obviously Vegas has them winning the series and the Rangers are the underdog. But the Rangers have that one more home game, which they benefit if it goes to a game 7. The Rangers are a good home team, as we've seen in the playoffs. And I think all around speed, like you said, Speedy, the Rangers definitely have the advantage.
Yeah, the thing that the Rangers have to avoid, too, are these random defensive lapses. We've seen it with Trouba a lot in the playoffs so far. We've seen it with Lindgren at certain points. And like you said, he's playing hurt. That's not ideal. And Gustafsson, too, is just an older guy that hasn't skated as well. I'm curious if they'll rotate in Zach Jones at some point, maybe if Gustafsson continues to struggle. But that's the other thing that worries me with the Rangers' defensive depth.
Barkov, Bobrovsky, Ekblad, all these guys, even Kyle Oposo. I mean, this is a team that can put the puck in the net. There's no question that they can. They're a scary team. And I'm going to say this. I'm not a big Tkachuk fan, but Matthew Tkachuk is dangerous. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to tell you this right now. If the Rangers play sloppy like they did against Carolina in I think game 4 and game 5, they're not going to win this series. This is a team that capitalizes on mistakes. They're good at capitalizing on mistakes. The only reason why, and I'm going to tell you this, in certain aspects of the Boston series, Boston outplayed the Panthers. They did. But you know what? Boston did in the later games. They made mistakes, and Florida capitalized on them. And Bobrovsky has not played well in the playoffs. He has not. Vladimir Tarasenko knows the Rangers. Yeah. He knows them. He knows how to put the puck behind a guy like Shesterkin. Shesterkin is a great goalie. There's no question that he is. But Shesterkin needs to be confident. If he's not confident in this series, and you see it, it'll be early in this game. You're going to see tonight if he's confident. If he's not confident and Florida gets the lead, and Florida's very good at playing with the lead, if they get the lead in every single game, the Rangers are going to be in a lot of trouble.
Before we get our guest on, Snug, no, I'm not getting a tattoo if the Rangers win a cup.
Anyways, when we come back, we will be talking to ex-Rangers and Islanders GM, our friend Neil Smith. And by the way, he was there. He was the GM for the New York Rangers when they won in 94, the last time they won a Stanley Cup. And he will be joining us here tonight. Game 1, Eastern Conference Finals, here on the Sports Loudmouth.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute.
Are you ready to get loud?
With Tommy Scoops.
Of course, we all know what time it is. It is the Loudmouth Sports Minute with the man of the minute, Tommy Scoops, in to give you guys all the rundown right now. Starting off over in the NHL, New Jersey Devils are hiring Sheldon Keefe as the new head coach. After Maple Leafs fired Keefe weeks ago following Game 7 loss to the Bruins, Keefe will coach Jersey on a 4-year deal. Over at NBA, the Cavs are rumored to give guard Donovan Mitchell a 4-year, $209 million contract extension. Mitchell, who is in his final year of his contract, could get a blockbuster deal to remain in Cleveland. Over in the NFL, Ravens head coach John Harbaugh says running back Peyton Mitchell is on track after an ACL tear week 15. Harbaugh also said that he is optimistic that Mitchell can return during the season. Finally, as speaking of the Ravens are becoming the favorite to land safety Jamal Adams. After a visit with Adams yesterday, the Ravens look to add the former All-Pro safety to their defense. Now it's going to be time for Scoops and Scores, where I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the scores going on right now. Currently, over in the MLB, the Yankees have a 2-0 lead over Seattle, with Miami having a 1-0 lead over Milwaukee. San Diego has a 2-1 lead over Cincinnati, and San Francisco and Pittsburgh are both tied up at nothing apiece, with Philadelphia having a 3-2 lead over Texas. Currently nothing going on in the NHL, as Errol mentioned over here. New York Rangers and the Panthers are going to be on the NHL at 8 o'clock, but that is all the time I have for you guys right now. I'm going to kick it back to the boys for their next guest on the Sports Loudmouth.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Willie Whopper, Speedy! Willie Whopper!
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Daryl Marks, my co-host, Speedy PD. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy, every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out all our local listings for all our shows is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I know he's been waiting very patiently, and he's getting ready for this Stanley Cup Eastern Conference Finals. I know he's going to have his eyes locked in. We are now talking to former Rangers and Islanders GM, Neil Smith. Neil, what's up, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm down in South Carolina, and 85, 86 degrees today. It's very warm down here, but I'm anxious to see this game that's going to start at 10 minutes after 8.
That's right. And I'm very excited. I know all the Ranger fans are excited. And something that the Rangers have not seen in a very, very long time is a Stanley Cup, which you've seen it. You've hoisted it. And something that they've been craving for. Henrik Lundqvist, one of the greatest goaltenders to ever play, never got over the hump. He was a big part of why the Rangers got into the Stanley Cup Finals. What was it, in 2015 or 14? Yeah. So the Rangers had their chance. They obviously choked, and now they have a chance again this year. I think with Peter Laviolette and what they have together with the team that they have, the depth that they have, offensively and defensively, they have a very good chance. What are your thoughts going into this series against a very good Florida Panther team?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you guys, and I've been picking Florida since the regular season to be the Stanley Cup team. So I'm not going to pull back on that now, but it's going to be a great series. It's going to be, I think, a very long series. I heard you guys talking before about Trocheck, and I agree totally about Trocheck, but you know, Florida, if you enjoy Trocheck and you think he's a big part of the Rangers, Florida has a bunch of Trochecks. I mean, that's the way they play. They play the way Trocheck plays for the Rangers. And I think that they're going to go hard on the Rangers and see if the Rangers can play that grinded out game and without making the mistakes that they were making against Carolina. So it's going to be a good one. I've thought that Florida was going to win ultimately, but I didn't have to talk about Florida and the Rangers, but I'm not going to pull back from saying what I've been saying since the regular season.
So I was talking before we got you on about some of the defense, Fox and Lindgren playing hurt. Trouba's been staying in the penalty box way too long. And then Gustafson sometimes has looked old in the second half of the season. Are you worried about any of those guys defensively in these particular matchups against Florida?
Well, I'm mostly worried about Fox, and if Fox is going to get protected by the rest of the team. He's not a big guy. Florida is going to run him every chance they get. They know he's their kingpin back there. I think they've got a lot of injuries back there that are hidden right now, as most teams do. Certainly, Jacob Trouba is struggling a little bit right now for whatever reason, and he's the guy that you look at as the ultimate warrior, the ultimate playoff player, style player. Gustafson, you're right. He's getting a little bit older. Lindgren is always hurt because he uses his body like a human shield of everything. And I do get concerned for the Rangers that their defense is a little bit off right now. But the one thing that they've got that nobody else in the league has is Shesterkin. He's better than every goalie in the league. He's got a good opponent though in Bobrovsky. He didn't have a good opponent last round in Anderson. There was no comparison in the two. And I think, quite honestly, one thing you guys didn't talk about while I was waiting was the fact that they were down 3-1 in that last game. Mm-hmm. And had it not been for Anderson blowing it, mm-hmm. The Rangers would have been going to Game 7 because they were right out of it. And suddenly Kreider chopping that puck over his foot, which he never should have been able to do because Anderson went down to pick up the puck like a peewee, and Kreider's stick got there first and chopped it into the net. And I just think that, Anderson lost that series for Carolina, and Anderson won that series for the Rangers.
No question. We were speaking about that last week after the Rangers eliminated the Carolina Hurricanes. I know we didn't mention it now, but we are talking to former Rangers and Islanders GM Neil Smith. Neil, you watch both those series. You watch the Boston series and Florida. Even though I thought Florida was the better team, there was no question that they had the better all-around team. Boston actually outplayed them in certain games. They did. And they played hard, and that's something that you have to give a lot of credit to the Boston Bruins. But you have a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, a guy that really stands for that toughness, and he brings that toughness every single game, just like his father Keith did, and his other brother does. So what are your thoughts in this series? Do you think that the Rangers need to contain Matthew out of all the players, or is there another player that the Rangers like Barkov or one of those guys that they need, Reinhardt, one of those guys that they need to stop in this series more than Matthew Tkachuk?
Yeah, I don't think Matthew Tkachuk is a guy. I think they should try to turn a blind eye to him most of the time because he tries to be the junkyard dog and go after everybody, piss everybody off, and try to get them to take a penalty against them. And I think for the most part, you've got to ignore him. The Panthers too are going to be very cognizant of the fact that the Rangers power play in the last round was just awesome. I mean, it was just amazing, and they're going to have to be careful about taking penalties by trying to intimidate the Rangers or whatever they're going to try to do, because the power play is just simply too good for the Rangers to take that chance. So, you've got Reinhardt that's, really good there all the time. Barkov is a two-way player. Barkov is the type of guy that when you need to worry about Barkov is when the Florida Panthers have the lead, because he's going to protect that lead like nobody else. He's like a Steve Larmer of the Florida Panthers. He's a Selke Trophy winner now. And he's just an all-round disciplined player. So I'm not sure that you've got to worry about him when things are even, but if they get the lead, he's going to be the guy trying to shut everybody down. I like their defense. I like the way that some of their players have come through, like Forsland and Montour and guys. Ekblad's been there a long time, and I thought Ekblad might have been poisoned a few years ago. And when I say poisoned, of course, I don't mean literally. I mean, I thought he might have been into that losing dynamic that was going on there for so long. But he's bounced back and he wants to win as bad or worse than anybody. So he's played really well for them. And of course, goalie Bob is a story in itself. There's a great story about the Panarin and Bobrovsky both being on Columbus Blue Jackets and now finding their way to the Stanley Cup semifinal against each other. And I that's a very rewarding story to read.
So you mentioned last time you were on the show that you did not like what the Rangers did at the trade deadline last year, going after Tarasenko and Kane. So what about this year with Wenberg and Roslovic? Ruhwedel hasn't played much, but what are your thoughts on those moves and the impact they have in this matchup?
I think they were excellent moves. I think that's what you should do at the deadline. If you've got a good team, if you got a contender, fortify what's got you there. And I think they did that with Roslovic, and I think they did that with Wenberg. I think that was really smart. What they did, they just fortified what they already have. And then you take into it, you basically are getting two more guys out of nowhere dropped into your lap, and Hedl, if he can play, and Wheeler, who are coming back from these injuries. Now, all of a sudden, those are like guys you'd try to pick up at the deadline too. I mean, they're better than that, but you know what I'm trying to say. So you've got some real good depth there now for Peter Laviolette to work with.
We are talking to former Rangers and Islanders GM Neil Smith. Neil, when we go into the Eastern Conference, and we'll get into the Western Conference Finals with you too, because that's going to be a fun series as well, as everybody thinks that this is Dallas's year, and Dallas has had a sensational year offensively, defensively, and goaltending. I mean, their goaltender has been as good as anybody in the playoffs. When you look at the Rangers and you look at the Florida Panthers, what stands out in this series more than anything does? The one thing that I think stands out for me is the 5-on-5. The Rangers have been one of the worst 5-on-5 teams in the playoffs, and the Florida Panthers have been one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the playoffs. What is something that really stands out in this series for you?
Well, I would say it in a different way than what you just said, but I would agree with you totally. The Rangers, one of the reasons they haven't been so good 5-on-5, in my opinion, is that they play with skill. And when you play with skill, on overabundance of skill, and you're evenly matched player wise with the other team, meaning 5-on-5, it's really hard. They can shut you down when they're 5-on-5, but they can't shut you down on the power play because you've got one more man out there. And that I think is why they're so dynamic on the power play. Now you go to the other end of the ice and you've got guys that aren't nearly as skilled with the Panthers, but they're grittier and they're more tenacious, in my opinion, than the Rangers are. The Rangers, again, are high skilled, but the Florida Panthers are a bunch of junkyard dogs, as I talked about with Kachuk, and it's just two different styles of game, and it's going to be really interesting to see. Now, if the Panthers come out tonight at the Garden and try to intimidate the Rangers and end up taking stupid penalties, the Zibanejad and Kreider and Fox and Panarin and Trocheck, they're going to make them pay, and they could get down early. And once you get down early, I don't care who you get down early to, Rangers aren't going to blow a lead if they can get an early lead on them. So, because they got Shesterkin, they're not the Carolina Hurricanes with Anderson in net, get a 3-1 lead at home and blow it. That's not going to happen. So it's going to be really interesting because the Panthers are going to have to play the way they play, but they're going to have to have a line and not cross that line, or else they're really going to pay for it with the Rangers power play.
So is there any X factor, whether it's a player or a concept that the Rangers have to do to be able to suffice with that depth against this Florida talent? Like you were saying, a lot of guys that are good centers or bigger wingers like a Kachuk, or even somebody like Verhaeghe, that's a good hybrid too of everything. Like any X factors for the Rangers in order to be able to do that on second and third lines?
I think Trocheck is an X factor. He scored. He's got points in every playoff game, I believe, so far. So I think he's definitely an X factor. You look at Panarin. Everybody focuses on Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, right? And because those are their goal scorers. I think the other kid, Lafreniere, who's coming through, unnoticed. Like all of a sudden, Lafreniere scored again. He's been a great addition for them in the playoffs, and. I think the X factor, though, again, is going to be Shesterkin. How can he bail them out? You guys talked before I came on about Lundqvist standing on his head back in 14 and 15 to get them where they had to go. And they rode, I think they rode Lundqvist for a decade.
Yes.
That was their team, was Lundqvist. But even the King, couldn't get them through to the Cup because you got to have more than that. They do have more than that now, and they got Shesterkin. And if Shesterkin can beat Lundqvist now, they got a chance.
The guy
they really got a chance.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but the guy that if I were the Rangers, I worry about is Vladimir Tarasenko. And because he knows this team, he knows their strengths, he knows the weakness of the heart of this team. And I think Tarasenko is going to be a big part of why the Florida Panthers are going to win this series if they win, is because I think he's a goal scorer. He's a playoff player. We know what he did with the St. Louis Blues, even for the Rangers last year. He was a big part of what the Rangers were doing before they got pushed out by the Devils, a faster, younger team. And I think that when you look at the Rangers right now, the Rangers do have the speed. I think the Rangers are the faster team. I do. All around they do. And the automatic athletic talent, I think they do. But I think the hybrid rough type of team that you look for to win Stanley Cups, as we all know, even your team, the Rangers in 94, you can say whatever you want. You guys were rough. You had guys that were gritty players. Even Brian Leetch, who was a very finesse player. He was a tough player. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Jeff Bukaboom, tough player. These guys were tough. And to me, that's what the Rangers are going to have to bring in this series if they plan to win. If they don't, like I said, and I agree with you, and so does Speedy. We both think that Florida are going to win this series, but I do believe it's going to be a long series. What is your thoughts to that?
I agree with that. I think it's going to be a long series. I've said that Florida's going to win the Cup, so to win the Cup, they got to win this series.
Of course.
But you've described it really well. And part of the frustration of watching the NHL that I've learned, and I'm sure you guys have too, but over many years, is that you watch it for 6 months and you have your own prediction if you were unemotional, and I'm very unemotional about the league now that I'm not with a team. You have an unemotional opinion of who's going to win. And the President's Trophy team, we say, well, the last President's Trophy winner that won the cup was 2013. It takes a different type of team to win in the regular season than it does in the playoffs. And, even last year, when Boston got knocked out by Florida, which was unfathomable to me, it was reminiscent of the Islanders knocking out the Penguins in '93. Who came through and won was the big, strong, Vegas Golden Knights. They came through. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the most skilled. But they had the playoff type team that could come through. And the up and coming Panthers, which at the time I thought was a Cinderella team a year ago. I thought they were a Cinderella team. Well, most Cinderella teams do not come back the way Florida Panthers came back. Most Cinderella teams think they're a lot better than they are because they went to the final, like the Montreal Canadiens a few years ago. They don't do enough in the offseason, and they're out of the playoffs the following year. So, again, it's frustrating. And this year, it's going to be frustrating for Ranger fans. President's Trophy, we're the best team in the league. We should win the cup because we're the best team in the league. But unfortunately, when you run a marathon and you win it, and then somebody says, okay, now you got to run a bunch of sprints, and we're going to see. And if you can beat 16 guys in sprints, then you win the cup. Well, you might not be a good sprinter. You're a good marathon runner, but you're not a good sprinter. So what I'm trying to say in all this is that it's very frustrating to try to analyze the league from a strict who ends in first and who doesn't. One thing that I've enjoyed in this year's playoffs is the fact that for the first time ever, I'm wrong. Sorry. I was going to say something and I caught myself. I'm wrong. If Vancouver had beaten Edmonton, the 4 division winners would have all been in the semifinals. Edmonton beat Vancouver. Had Edmonton not had that atrocious start to their season, they might have won that division anyway, and they probably are the best team in that division. But you got 3 out of the 4 division winners in this year's playoffs. So at least the fans that bought season tickets and went to every game got to see, not that huge disappointment like the Boston Bruin fans did last year. They win everything and set records and then get bounced in the first round.
Speaking of sprinters, you mentioned the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid, who I think is the best player and has been the best player in the world for the last, I would say, 8 years. Since he's really been a rookie, he's been unbelievable, and he's put the team on his back. The last 2 games of that series was the only reason why they're in the conference finals is because of McDavid. He is unbelievable. He is sensational. He could take over the game. But you're going against a Dallas Stars team that I think has been, I believe, in the second half of the season, the best hockey team in all of the league. I believe right now, you mentioned Sturkin. I think they have just as good a goaltender right now in the playoffs. In Ottinger. I'm sorry. Oettinger. I always mess up his name. Oettinger. And also, they have one of the best defensemen in all of hockey. So what are your thoughts to this series? Who do you have and why?
I think that the Dallas Stars have a better depth team. They're a better put together team than the Oilers. The Oilers, no doubt, have, and the guy that doesn't get enough mention is Hyman, who's been unbelievable for them in goal scoring. But they have, everybody mentions McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman are fantastic. Then they've got Bouchard, who can put the puck right through the boards on the back line, but they don't have goaltending. Skinner, you don't know what you're going to get from one game to the next. He did have a good run there near, earlier, but he hasn't had a consistent run. They even had to put in Pickard in the first round. Sorry. So their goaltending is shaky. Oettinger is a franchise goalie. Dallas, I don't know where their weakness is with Dallas. I mean, they got this Wyatt Johnson kid who is a kid. He's 20 years old and he's dominating some of the playoff games. I think Dallas is just too deep for Edmonton. I think, you take care of McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman and, and a couple others, and your bottom six is so much better than their bottom six. And I think they're deeper on defense. You talk about Heiskanen, who's really, really good, gets almost a point a game. I can't see Edmonton beating Dallas. I just can't.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the Dallas and the Colorado series. We saw Dallas give up a lot of goals in bunches in that series, which I think has also been the Edmonton strength. You see them when they score in a flurry, as you saw in that game 7-2. Is that anything you would be concerned about Dallas, even with the defensive depth that they have? Or do you think it'll be a different series with that?
I think it's just going to be a different series. I think that I think Colorado, and I really like Colorado because I like a lot of their players. Makar, I just think he's fantastic. McKinnon is he's today's Mark Messier, as far as just a bull in a china shop. But when they lost Nikushkin, I was sure that they're in big trouble now because Nikushkin was scoring in every game, and Rantanen is a great player too. But they needed those top guys to continue to be their top guys. And do you remember the next game after Nikushkin was announced that he was going to be gone out of the lineup? I think they got like one shot in the first period or something of the next game. And it was at home, and Dallas just dominated them. And I'm saying to myself, oh, these guys are cooked now. I had them going to the final over Dallas. I thought the final would be Florida and Colorado. I have that in my one of my friends got me into one of those brackets, and that's who I had. But the Nikushkin thing was a big blow. That taking Nikushkin out of the lineup for them would be like taking Kreider out right now, saying suddenly, oh, guess what? Rangers aren't going to have Kreider for the rest of the season. You'd just be like, what? So I do think Dallas is too deep, too well put together, and their goaltending it's just there's no comparison. Ottinger and Skinner or Pickard.
We are talking to former Rangers and Islanders GM, our friend Neil Smith, and it's so funny because I think who did I have in the Stanley Cup Finals? Was it Vegas?
I think you had Colorado as well.
I had Colorado and Florida. I had Florida. I had Florida winning the Stanley Cup. And I still have Florida winning.
But you did have Vegas upsetting Dallas.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes, I had Vegas. Upsetting Dallas. I didn't realize how good Dallas was because I didn't watch a lot of Dallas games this year. I really didn't. And then I've been watching them throughout the playoffs. I'm like, wow, this team is fast. They got goal scoring. Their best player is a defenseman. They have one of the better goalies in the playoffs. I mean, this team is stacked, and they have a very good coach. They have a guy that's actually knows what he's doing. So. I've been very impressed with the Dallas Stars, but the one thing I've been very impressed with going back to the Edmonton Oilers is Knobloch. He took over this team. He came from the Rangers farm system, and everybody was thinking, oh, are the Rangers going to bring him in? Is he going to be the next head coach? Or are they going to bring in Peter Laviolette? They decided to go with Peter Laviolette. I don't think they made the wrong choice, but what Knobloch has done for the Edmonton Oilers it's been astonishing. It really has been unbelievable. This was one of the worst teams in the league. And then all of a sudden he goes over there and this team is automatically a different team. What are your thoughts to Knobloch and what he's done this year for the Edmonton Oilers?
He's done everything you just said, but I think also so that we don't disparage the previous guy whose name is escaping. Pardon me?
Jay Woodcroft was the last one.
Yes, Scott Woodcroft.
Oh, Scott. Jay. I thought it was Jay. Okay, but no.
Jay Woodcroft. You're right, Jay. I don't want to disparage him. He did a good job for the Edmonton Oilers, but I think what happens is the voice loses its intensity. It stops going into the eardrums after a while. I think Lindy Ruff did such a good job, and then suddenly the voice isn't getting. Sheldon Keefe, you can't do a better job than Sheldon Keefe did with Toronto. He loses in the 7th game overtime, and they can him because. And I'm if I was there, I probably would have had to do it too because that's the market and the expectations. But come on, you fire Sheldon Keefe so to try to go out and find somebody who's as good as Sheldon Keefe. You know, so let's go to Knobloch. I think he's done a tremendous job, and I think he's done a tremendous job in a John Cooper type way. You know, he's been he's not a lot of fire and brimstone and all that crap. He's come in and said, look, guys, we got to take this in small segments. We're going to go just a couple games at a time. Let's get through the next 3. Let's get through the next. Let's not look and say, how many points do we need to make the playoffs? How many points are we behind? Let's just take this slowly. And it was magical what he did. He deserves to win the Jack Adams Award.
No question.
He won't, because Tocchet took a non-playoff team to first place. So Tocchet is going to win the Jack Adams. But had it not been for Rick Tocchet's performance, Knobloch has been just lights out with that Oiler team.
So my last question, we hear these comparisons all the time because it's 30 years later, the 94 versus the 2024 Rangers. Do you see any similarities?
None.
With those two teams?
None.
You running that team at the time versus
None.
this team?
Not even close.
They still have the same uniform.
That's it. That's about it. That's about it. Honestly,
You know, I will say this. Let me just say this,
Right.
because I said this to somebody else, and I believe this. This isn't to make Ranger fans happy. It's not to do anything like that. I do believe that the construction of this Ranger team can be compared to the construction of the 94 team. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've got a number one center who's really good in Zibanejad. We had a number one center in Mess, different types of players. And that's going to happen with all these guys I talk about. But you do have that. You've got Panarin, who reminds me of Kovalev in some ways, because you never know what you're going to get from him in the games. Kreider can be Adam Graves, like just switch their uniforms around. Mike Richter, Shesterkin. I think Shesterkin is probably better today than Mike was back then, but who's to say? I mean, it's a different era. You got Brian Leach, you got Adam Fox. Much different, but still both Norris candidates perennially. So the construction of having, you know, the one good offensive defenseman, the strong, big guy in front of the net, Kreider, Graves, really a dynamic centerman in Zibanejad, Messier. I think Trocheck is the ace of Tikkanen that, you know, you're getting a lot from him when you least expect it. So that's what I will say is my comparison of the 94 team. Other than that, nothing, because it's a different era.
if you were to ask me right now who would win in a 7-game series, I would take the 94 Rangers. And I just, the 94 Rangers were just very, very gritty. They were a gritty team, and they would do anything. They did anything to win those games. Anything. Yeah. I mean, Matteau, what he did against the Devils, arguably the greatest goaltender of all time. I don't care what anybody says. I think Martin Brodeur is the greatest goalie I've ever seen. And that's even Patrick Waugh, who's coaching my team right now. I don't care what Patrick Waugh says. Martin Brodeur is the greatest goalie I've ever seen. Eddie Jockerman was good too. I never got a chance to see him. So you did, but I never did.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's incredible what we have seen so far in hockey and the transition of the way the league has changed. And you have to give Gary Bettman a lot of credit for what he has done. I know a lot of people don't like him and they boo him. I think he's, for all the people that boo him, he's better than Goodell. He's better than Stein. I'm sorry, not Silver, Adam Silver, who I'm not a big fan of, by the way, because he lets the players run the league, and he's much better than Rob Manfred. Okay, so I think what Gary Bettman has done and what the way he is really redeveloping the game, the speed of the game, and making the game more fun to watch is incredible. My last question to you is, when you look at the game and what the game has changed into, even from here in New York, for some of the great young New York players that are coming and going into the league now, what are you looking for? What are you looking at in the future of where the NHL is going?
Well, you're right in everything you said about Gary. He works for the owners. He's an employee of the owners. And nobody could have done a better job than he's done of taking this league to 32 teams and the revenue that they're making, which is his job, is to get the revenues up. With the game itself changing, The game had to change. It couldn't, we look back on the 90s and look back on what went on and all that stuff. Society today is not the same society that we had in the 90s. So it's not going, the 90s game is not going to appeal to the 2024 society. It's just not. Seeing guys go toe to toe with their helmets off and bloodied and all the rest of it, that's not going to work in this society. We get some fights now in the league. I've noticed in the playoffs, guys actually square up, but they got a shield on. They're not allowed to take their helmet off. There's a lot of safeguards in there. So it's a fast game. It's a great game. The thing that it's allowed the players to do is really work on their skills and be so highly skilled now. And the reason they can work on their skills and be so highly skilled is because they don't have to be scared to death. Because before you were trying to stay alive, and now, you're working on your skills, and you're not out going into a game going, God, these guys could take my head off, which you did before. And so it's a very highly skilled game. Wayne Gretzky said to me on my podcast, he said, when that skills competition came into the league, he says, I just said, I'm not going to be any good at this. He said, I didn't practice all that stuff. He says, today's players practice all that skill stuff, taking the puck up on your stick and being able to throw it to the linesman and all that stuff. You never saw guys do that in the 90s. Like the way they do now, they pick the puck up on their stick and hand it over to the referee to drop it. It's a totally different mindset and skill set, but it had to become that in my opinion, for society, because that's where society has gone. We don't put up with the stuff today that we put up with in the 90s in other parts of society. And I think our sports are a microcosm of our society. And I think that the rules have to follow in some way, shape, or form the rules of society so that, people can relate to it. It's just that. And let me give you one quick example and I'll stop. Mm-hmm. When a player like Trouba hits a guy and nails him and just knocks him into next week, right, with a clean check, what happens? Guy comes after him to fight him. Okay. Mm-hmm. Why should Trouba get a penalty? Okay. If I'm in a bar tonight and a guy comes up and punches me and I get into a fight with him, the cops are not going to arrest me. They're going to let me go because I had to defend myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't do anything wrong. And Trouba or whoever, and I'm only using him, shouldn't be getting a penalty for simply having to defend himself against some guy that wants to say you're not allowed to cleanly hit our players. Because that's society. And I go back to that. I just making this point is that we should be following the rules of society, which means you're allowed to defend yourself if you're attacked. But in hockey, we don't follow that. We still say, well, you're getting a penalty because you could have turtled and you didn't. So that's my rant.
Wow, that's great. I think it's a great rant. And by the way, tell the fans how they can find you on your podcast. I definitely want to work with you. We spoke about this last time we had you on the show. We definitely got to do something with you guys. I checked out the Wayne Gretzky interview, by the way. It's fantastic. Yeah. You guys have such a great show. You really do.
I'll tell you one that you'd really enjoy that's out there right now. And I'm saying this because everybody's told me they love it. We did a 50th anniversary of the 74 Flyers Cup with Bernie Parent and Jay Snyder, Ed Snyder's son. And Bernie Parent was hilarious, just hilarious. We said to them, well, Bernie, that season 73, 74, you pretty well went through the league. You only had 3-game losing streak. And he says, yeah, that was when the other goalie was in the net.
Was that the year they did the whole Soviet Union tour before the season started?
They had that thing when Clark broke the guy's ankle, and they had, this was right during the heyday of the St. Louis Blues had the Plager brothers, and the Bruins had O'Reilly and Stan Jonathan, and so the Flyers had to battle against that, and they became the Broad Street Bullies with Schultz and Zaleski and all those guys. So it was, again, that was a whole different time than the 90s. You go back and watch that. Nobody's got a helmet on. and you could pull hair. I mean, Schultz would get into fights and pull guys by the hair. So now you can't even help the guy. Guy can't even take his helmet off, let alone pull him by the hair.
Or you can have Mike Milbury, who takes off his skate and tries to kill you with it.
Well, no, that was the guy's shoe. That was the spectator's shoe. He was hitting the guy with his own shoe.
There you go. Mike Milbury. What a joke. Oh my God. Hockey, what a transition. I mean, so from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. It really is different. But Neil, you're great. You're fantastic. Great takes and everything that you've done and all the stuff that you're doing right now with your podcast. We will be in contact with you. We definitely want to do something with you with your
There's
podcast.
There's the
that's it.
Name of it, NHL Wraparound. You can find it everywhere, like you guys know, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, if you want to watch it. I don't know why you'd want to watch me, but yeah, you can watch it. Bernie Perront's worth watching. Bernie Perront's worth going on YouTube because he had a great background with his jersey behind him. And you don't have to be a Flyers fan. You can hate the Flyers, but this is really enjoyable. And we're going to do more of these. We're going to do one on the Islanders at some point. Their Stanley Cups. We're doing a 5-part series on the Rangers, of course, the 30th anniversary. But they're really fun to do, and they're emotional. You get guys to go back in their life, back to those times. It gets really emotional. And when I say, I don't mean they're bawling, crying, but it gets emotional. It's like you feel the feelings that you felt back then. And
I'll tell you this. I hated when you traded away John Van Beesbroek, but it was great to watch the Ranger fans in '94 have that opportunity to just watch Mark Messier when he grabbed that cup and how crazy he went and how happy he was, and then when he gave it to you. So it was unbelievable, and Ranger fans will always remember you. I have no idea why you're not a GM or have not been a GM. For the last couple of years, I think a team needs to see what hockey is and what hockey should be, as it moves forward. And I think what you have done for your podcast and everything that you've done for the league, I think the league needs to realize what. And by the way, you're a Hall of Famer. I don't care what anybody says. You're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping someday that could happen for my legacy down the road, and that there's a lot of the Ranger GMs. In fact, almost all of them are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Obviously, Lester Patrick deserves to be in there. He won 3 Stanley Cups way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. But if it's really hard to get it done in New York, it's really hard. And I'm not talking Long Island and New Jersey. I'm talking Manhattan. It's really hard. When you're the team that has the millions of fans and that it's tough. You got so many people trying to throw you off course and people screaming at you, and it's really tough. And I was just lucky and there at the right time and the right place at the right time.
Stop it. You're the one that made the moves. You're the one that changed everything and the outlook of this team. So stop saying, "Oh, you were lucky." You were.
I was lucky to be there. I was lucky to be there. Lucky to get the chance.
You're the one that changed everything for them. You're the one that made the trade for Steve Larmer. You're the one that made the trade for Mark Messier. You're the one who decided to trade Van Beesbroek and go with Richter. You're the one. You're the one. So stop saying, "Oh, I was lucky." You weren't lucky. You earned the right to be and to do what you did. And unfortunately, I just don't understand how nobody has looked at you to be a GM in the last 20 years. It makes no sense. So
well, I appreciate that. But you know what, guys, we got to get watching the game. I think it started. I don't have a TV on. You guys might be cheating.
Yeah, we have a TV right here. It didn't start. They're doing the national anthem right now. But thank you, Neil, for giving us the time. We'll talk to you after the playoffs, and we'll try to work something out with your podcast.
Yeah, I want to see. I'm anxious to come back on here and talk to you about why the Panthers did or did not win this series. And, somebody said to me today, I said, look, the Rangers could win. They could win this series. They could win the cup. I mean, yeah, they're good enough to do that. Do I think that's going to happen? No, because you're asking me to predict. So I'm predicting, but I'm not, it's not an emotional prediction. Something that these betting sites win so much money off of emotional bets,
Yeah.
which are just stupid. If you bet on a team because you're emotionally involved with them, you might as well just give me the money.
I like it too. I mean, let's share. Sharing
Yeah.
is caring. Sharing.
All right,
is-
guys. Thanks
All right.
for having me on.
Thank you for joining us, Neil. Neil Smith, ladies and gentlemen, former Rangers and Islanders GM, fantastic. Won the last Stanley Cup, and one of the nicest and down to earth people when it comes to hockey. He knows his stuff. But Neil Smith. All right, let's go to a quick break. We're going to do our Sports Minute. When we come back, we're going to get back into the Rangers, and we'll go through the NBA and NHL conference final previews. And obviously, reports say that Darius Garland will likely request a trade if the Cavs give Donovan Mitchell an extension. Do these guys not like each other? I don't know. When we come back, we'll get into that here on the Sports Loudmouth. But first, Tommy Scoops.
This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute
Are you ready to get loud?
with Tommy Scoops.
That's right, as promised. Everybody already knows this is the Loudmouth Sports Minute with Tommy Scoops, the man himself. And getting straight into it right now of the rundown, currently in the NBA. The league announced its first team All-NBA list headlined by Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Luka Doncic. The league also revealed the names for the second and third All-NBA lists, which names such as Jalen Brunson and Anthony Edwards. Over in the NFL, after Ravens QB Lamar Jackson reportedly slimmed down 25 pounds, Jackson says that the decision to drop the weight was to increase the agility and speed, saying he feels great looking towards next season. And finally, over in the NFL, the Vikings are rumored to give wide receiver Justin Jefferson a record-setting deal. Jefferson, who is in his final season of his contract, could get a deal that makes him the highest-paid QB in highest-paid non-QB in NFL history. Going over into Scoops and Scores, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the games going on right now. Currently only have MLB on tap, with the Yankees having a 4-0 lead over Seattle. Miami currently having a 1-0 lead over Milwaukee. San Diego has a 7-3 lead over Cincinnati. Pittsburgh with a 5-1 lead over San Francisco. Philadelphia with a 3-6 lead over Texas. And Tampa Bay with a 5-3 lead over Boston. That is currently all the time I have for you guys right now. I'm going to kick it back to the boys for the continuation of the Sports Loudmouth.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out all our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. First of all, Ashley, we just spoke about hockey for what? The last hour? What are you talking about? We just had Neil Smith on. We spoke about the Rangers. What more do you want us to get into? We spoke about the Dallas Stars. We spoke about the Edmonton Oilers. Where do you want us to go here? The lead was basketball, yeah, because the NBA is pretty big. But the Rangers, we spoke about the Rangers and hockey for as long as we did. I don't know what more you want us to do. I mean, who speaks about hockey for an hour on a show, on a sports show? We do. And we're not just a hockey show. So I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know why you're attacking us because we're going into some basketball. That doesn't make any sense. By the way, it's the beginning of the first period, 0-0 with the Rangers, 18:55 left. And right now Florida is in the Rangers zone. Yeah, so that was unbelievable. Neil Smith was fantastic. He really was great and just amazing. Really, really, really just amazing. So thank you to Neil Smith for giving us the time as he always does. I do want to get into the previews of the playoffs. And right now it's been fun. And I'm going to say this. This has been as good from when it comes to basketball and when it comes to hockey, because I think it's wide open in the basketball world because Denver is not in it anymore. Everybody had Denver winning the NBA championship. They're no longer there. The Timberwolves surprised everybody, shocked the world, coming back from a 17-point lead by Denver in game number 7 and winning game 7 against the world champions. And by the way, coming back after having a 2-0 lead, letting Denver come back and going up 3-2, and then coming back and winning the last 2 games. Amazing what the Timberwolves accomplished. So I'm very impressed with the Timberwolves and what the Timberwolves have done. And also, I've been very, very impressed with the Dallas Mavericks and what they have done. Did anybody think they were going to beat OKC? I didn't. Speed, I know you didn't.
I did actually, but I didn't think they would. I didn't think Denver would lose to Minnesota, though, and I didn't think Minnesota was even going this far.
I didn't think
really impressive.
I didn't think Dallas was going to beat OKC. I was very impressed. Kyrie Irving again had a very good playoff series. He's a great playoff player, and Luka Doncic is, to me, the reason why he should have been the MVP of the league. I thought he was sensational. He was everything for the Dallas Mavericks, and the Mavericks got enough off the bench with some of the key additions that they made at the trade deadline. So I've been very impressed, and I think this is going to be a great series.
Yeah. And I also look at like you said, the trade deadline, because the Mavericks finally have size in addition to their scoring too, something they've always lacked for a while too. It'll be interesting to see how that matches with the Timberwolves size.
And then there's the Indiana Pacers, who gave the Celtics a run for their money in game number 1. As a matter of fact, if Jaylen Brown didn't hit that 3-pointer before regulation, they win game number 1. They're up 1-0.
Yeah.
And Indiana it played very, very well against the Boston Celtic team. Yes, they don't have Porzingis, but they will. And they're going to have Porzingis, and they're better round overall team. There's no question that the Celtics are, and they have the depth to win. White has had a sensational year. I mean, Drew Holiday hasn't been as good as we expected him to be, but he signed a 4-year deal extension with the Celtics, and he's going to be there for the long haul. So I'm interested in this series, but I still think the Celtics are going to win this series in 5. Just like I thought I thought the Knicks were going to win in 5. I just think they have too much firepower. When Porzingis comes back, it's going to be a complete mismatch in the middle.
Yeah, I wonder with the adjustment process we've seen from both of these teams so far, how the Pacers are going to continue to use their depth creatively. Because you even saw it in the second, third quarter of the first game that the Pacers were still sticking to those 10, 11 guys they were playing against the Knicks all the time, too. You saw them rotate so many of their bigger guards inside. Like I was talking about with the Knicks doing it, but also doing it more effectively when Brown and Tatum were on the court just individually or even on double teams. And I think that could help the Pacers keep the series a lot closer. And when Porzingis is going to come back is going to be an interesting question. It seems like it's going to be game 4 from everything we're hearing right now. And the Pacers did a good job of attacking that later in the game. They just have to do it in the full game. They can't get off to a 12-0 drought like they did in that game.
No way. But I'm going to say this. Indiana's going to give them a run for their money. If they play like that, if the Celtics play like that, it could be a long series. Now, I think the Celtics don't have as many injuries as the Knicks do.
Right.
And that was the problem. If the Knicks had all their players, they probably beat Indiana in 5 games, maybe even in 4. With Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson and even Bogdanovich giving you that points off the bench. That's what they were missing in that series. And Jalen Brunson wasn't 100% healthy throughout that series either, because he got hurt against the 76ers. So I think the Celtics have been fairly healthy in the series, in both their series, and now they're going into the Eastern Conference Finals against them being the superior team to the Indiana Pacers. So the Indiana Pacers were not supposed to be there.
No,
they're ahead of schedule, and I think they're going to be a very good team for many, many years to come. They have a very good coach in Rick Carlisle, even though he cries like a baby back bitch. Okay. That's what he was in that series against the Knicks. He cried about everything and then finally got the calls that he wanted. But I will say this, that series should go in 5. Porzingis should be back in game 3. That's what I'm reading. If he comes back in game 3 and they're up 2-0, I don't know how Indiana wins this series or even comes back or even makes this a series. I think Porzingis is definitely the game changer. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If Porzingis comes back and he's healthy, I think they're the favorites to win the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I as much as I like what the Timberwolves are doing defensively and what they're doing, and I have the Timberwolves winning the whole thing right now.
Okay.
If Porzingis comes back and he's 90%, it's going to be very, very hard to beat that Celtic team. No question.
Yeah, because I was mentioning when we were talking about the Knicks earlier, the Pacers were taking advantage of the fact that the Knicks didn't have that stretch four to be able to shoot the threes. You bring Porzingis back against a team that likes to play a lot of the guards or
And
Siakam's a
stretches
small
the
forward,
offense. Yeah, he stretches everything.
Because Siakam, like he's a great defender, obviously as it is, but you can get some height on him with Porzingis, who's 7'3". Then maybe they try to expose that advantage. Even Porzingis' ball handling is not bad either. That was something that was very undervalued when he was with the Knicks too, before he had all those injuries.
It's going to be very, very interesting. Again, if the Celtics go up 2-0, I think the series is over because then you're going to see Porzingis come back. Maybe the Celtics decide to hold out with Porzingis till game 4.
Yeah.
If they're up 2-0, I wouldn't rush Porzingis back until Indiana wins that first game. When Indiana wins that first game, then you definitely want to bring him in because Horford has done okay. He hasn't been great. I mean, he's an old man.
Yeah, he's been bad on defense, but he's been good on offense.
Yeah, and as long as you're getting that from him, you can do without Porzingis for right now, but it's going to be fun. It really is. I think the playoffs for basketball is wide open, probably more wide open than we've seen it because everybody thought Denver was going to win the championship last year. It was a foregone conclusion that Denver was going to win the championship the way they were playing and the way Murray was playing. This year, I thought it was Denver again. I didn't think, and the way they came back from the Timberwolves and took the 3-2 lead, I didn't think there was no way in hell after winning 3 games in a row that the Timberwolves are going to find a way. And that has a lot to do with Anthony Edwards and his confidence level and his game, his transitional, the way he plays transitional basketball. And he's fun to watch, man, defensively and offensively. It's just a high-flying beast of a man. And I'm going to tell you this right now. That Dallas series could go 6 games, but I think they have enough. I think the Timberwolves have enough firepower to knock off the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, and a lot of it will depend on the offensive depth with the wings for Minnesota. They've gotten some good production with Jaden McDaniels and a lot of the other veteran guys that they added. Mike Conley coming back, I think, was a big spark to why they won game 6 and 7 as well. You could tell the defense in those 3 games that they lost were not the same without Mike Conley in the lineup. And they're going to need that kind of thing against Kyrie Irving, especially because Kyrie Irving's had a lot of deep threes in all the OKC games. And OKC's got a good perimeter defense too.
No question.
SGA and Giddey. Like, they're very good long defenders, and they're going to need that kind of thing to stop Kyrie Irving, who's still making those shots over that kind of thing. And like I said, with the size, Dallas finally has the size, which they didn't have in years past with the trade deadline moves that they made. Can they be able to at least try to contain those Minnesota, essentially, behemoths that they have with Gobert in town?
As far as hockey is concerned, we just spoke to Neil Smith about this. I think that the Edmonton series, it's Dallas's to win. There's no way Edmonton wins that series if Dallas plays the way they have throughout the playoffs. I mean, they're the more talented team. Now, Edmonton has the 2 best players in the series. There's no question that they have the 2 best players, especially the way Connor McDavid is playing right now. And, obviously, we all know what the other guy is. His career right now, I think he has like 60 points.
Yeah, and I think he's the active leader of playoff goals since he debuted.
Yeah, so they have 2 behemoths. They have 2 stars, and they're dangerous, but they have no goaltending. Dallas has, I think, the best goalie right now in the playoffs. I know everybody likes Shesterkin, but Dallas's goaltender has played as good as any goalie in the playoffs, and they're getting enough offense from all different players offensively. And they're getting it from guys like Seguin and Ben, all these guys, even the veteran players, their leaders are doing it. And when you're getting enough from your veteran players that are not expected to do that, and even the youngster in Johnson, right?
Wyatt Johnson, yeah.
Johnson, the way he has played, I think that Dallas could be one of, if not the favorite to win the Stanley Cup right now for a lot of people. Right now, who does Vegas have winning?
Florida's the best. Florida has the best odds right now of the remaining teams.
That's interesting because I think Dallas, after what Dallas did against Colorado, I would think that Dallas would be ahead of Florida right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. This is the most balance that Dallas has ever had. Even years where they were 1 seeds too.
They went to the Stanley Cup a couple of years
ago. They did. They were a 3 seed that year. They were actually kind of thought of as more underdogs that year because Colorado was supposed to be a powerhouse. Dallas knocks them off in 7 in that wild 7-game series. And Dallas didn't really have the goaltending at that time. Ottinger wasn't there yet. He was still in the minors. And they had Anton Khudobin, I think it was. And they had an older Ben Bishop. Like, they came out of nowhere and made that kind of thing work. And this is a much more balanced team. When you look at this, is the best defensive depth that they have. They traded for Tanev at the deadline. Asa Lindell's another good one too. Like you said, Heiskanen's one of the best young ones in the league.
I think he is.
Talk about.
I think he's the best.
Yeah, he skates really well. Such precise skating on the
He's
defense.
the leading scorer of the team in the playoffs.
Yeah. And in addition to that, they're also getting offensive production from the defense, which is something that they missed last year when they were playing against Vegas. And like you said, they have depth of the veteran guys that have all the playoff experience. Joe Pavelski, another one too, that's been always good in the playoffs.
Old man Joe, baby. Old man Joe.
Matt Duchene getting his revenge on the Colorado Avalanche.
The douche. The douche man is rocking and rolling.
And two very good skaters and scorers on their first line too, with Rupe Hintz and Jason Robinson.
You like the douche man, right, Fish? Fish likes the douche man.
Maybe he does.
He likes the Fish man.
All right, well, why don't we ask him? What are your thoughts on that, Fish, on that nickname?
You like
Matt
the douche man? The douche man.
I mean, it's catchy, and his name literally is Duchene. I guess it's like he's douching his old team.
He's the douche man. That's what I
did
call
there?
him. The douche man. I remember when he was drafted, he was the third pick in that draft with John Tavares and Hedman.
Yep.
Hedman, it was Tavares 1, Hedman 2, and then the douche man. He was number 3.
And now John
And he's
Tavares,
still going.
douche Islander fans.
What did you say?
He's still going, Duchene. And Neil Smith was talking about it on
So
the
was
show.
Hedman, so was Tavares.
No, as like the depth on that Stars
Yeah.
team, that they've just got Duchene as like an extra guy for them.
Hmm.
Like that's pretty silly, if you think about what we're dealing with here when we talk about the Dallas Stars. I'm surprised too that they're saying Florida is the favorite when they got to go through this powerhouse Rangers team to get there, and the Stars,
It's powerhouse Rangers team. You hear this, Speedy?
I did.
Oh, you got the Ranger hat on. Yeah. When you wear the Ranger hat, they usually lose. So I'm just letting you know that.
Why, do you have exact data to back that
I
up?
do. I have the data. I have the data right on my crotch.
I'm not looking at the data in there. I am not looking at anything in your crotch where it comes to data that I don't even have the information of whether they win or lose because I'm not. That's
Well, you've never
embracing your nonsense. I'm not like superstitious to know which hat I've done better with in terms of the Ranger success over the
You're
years.
not naming them that.
Because I've had so many Ranger hats that I did not track that. He wants to go burn a bush in a crab. That's the most random one to make work there. That's how you shave.
Oh, Speedy, your takes are very precious.
Precious? What are you Gollum now?
My precious.
Hey, precious.
You look like Gollum. You kind of do.
Okay.
I mean, you're not bald. I mean,
Yeah.
let's shave your head.
No, it's not.
Let's try it. Let's make a bet.
No,
Let's make a bet.
I'm not
And if you
making any
lose
bet
the
involving
bet, you have to
shaving my
shave your head.
head. No.
All right, shave your balls.
No, I'm not embracing it. Good job, Scoops. That one worked.
Well, something has to be shaved on that body of yours.
All right, I'll do my facial hair at some point.
No, that's facial hair. No, the hair, the top of the head.
No,
Why?
I'm not shaving it.
I think you'd look good as a bald.
It doesn't matter.
You don't want to look good.
No.
You look sexy for all the
I don't
girls.
care.
They'll smack you in the forehead instead of
God.
smacking you in the ass.
Ouch.
Why? Why? What's wrong with the forehead?
I'm not going to expose my pretty much naked head at that point to being slapped.
Go ahead, Fish. I'm sorry.
Gollum spoke in riddles.
Riddle me this.
I think that was bad.
Riddle me
That
this.
was the Riddler.
Riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black ball sack? Right? Speedy, you like that?
I would be afraid, yes.
The ball sack? Well, you have a black ball sack.
So that would imply either it got painted on or it got burned.
Well, you can't see it, right?
I can see it, and it's not either of those.
Go ahead, Fish. We can get off topic. Oh my God. Might get
it's just simply, I'm so super excited about this Ranger team. I was a kid, 8 years old when the Rangers won the first time. Don't really remember, the gameplay or anything. Just remember the excitement that was in the city. I was at that ticker tape parade. It'd be a wonderful thing to be able to do that. Now that I'm older, it'd be, I'm sure there's a lot of people from our generation, me and you, Errol, between our ages, maybe have kids now and would love to bring their kids to that. So I think that'd be a real special thing, and I think they got a good shot as anybody. You know, they have the talent. They got if they skilled players play to their abilities, they shouldn't be able to be stopped with Shesterkin's going to play this way. But you know, like you said, you never know what Panarin's going to do. You never know what some of these guys are going to do. A little trick or treat, and Florida's a grinded out team. So, are we going to grind with them? If we do, we win.
Florida's on the power play and trick or treat. Give me something good to eat, right, Speedy?
No, because Trouba took a penalty again. This is probably the 6th one he's took of this postseason.
So you're going to slap him on the ass if they kill it?
No, he can come out of the penalty box at that point, and then he can skate to the bench. Or on the breakaway, he'd almost score a goal. What was it, game 6? He almost scored a goal.
He almost.
Yeah.
It's an almost.
I know. For how bad Trouba's been in these playoffs, I take all the positives I can get. Hopefully he can turn it around this series, but that's another one, so you wonder how, because he was hurt at the end of the year if he was playing hurt. So,
I mean, how else do you explain how crappy he is? He's not this bad. You know what I mean? Like,
he's never been.
He never lived up to the contract they gave him. I'm still upset about him being captain over Kreider, to be honest with you. A lot of people were upset about that, but apparently
Steve had a 20-minute rant calling our show when that happened.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You know,
Speedy got happy with that, right, Speedy?
What?
You got happy when the beef called, right? You do. You love the beef.
Yeah, I don't know if I was happy in that moment for him passionately pushing for it, because regardless, you're going to need leadership on a team. And
I just think that you and Nabeev would be a good couple.
Of course you do.
Clutch Point reports that Darius Garland is likely to request a trade if Donovan Mitchell gets an extension from the Cavaliers. Garland is on his 3rd year of a 5-year, $193 million contract. Yahoo Sports' Jake Fisher believes that Garland would bring back more in a trade than Trae Young. The Spurs are betting favorites to trade for him if he is dealt. The Lakers, Timberwolves, and Nets are other teams that are monitoring that information as well. Garland played just 57 games last season and averaged 18 points a game, 2.7 rebounds per game, and 6.5 assists per game. You know, it's so interesting. I don't know. I don't know how much he doesn't like Donovan Mitchell. Okay, because to me, why would you argue or care if Donovan Mitchell's getting this contract? If anything, that helps you out, because now you're not going to be dependent on as much. Garland has not been healthy for the last 2 seasons. He cannot stay healthy. Either is Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, he was lost in that series. If Donovan Mitchell plays in that Celtics series, maybe the Cavaliers challenge him. And they also lost Jared Allen. He was out in that series too. I mean, they had nobody. Karis LeVert. The 2 Nets didn't play the last 3 games of that series. So obviously, when you look at Darius Garland, I'm wondering what's going on in that locker room. And we've heard before the playoffs started, if this team does not win in the first round, they don't beat Orlando, they're going to pretty much trade away every single piece that they have. And now you're going into the offseason. Now, Donovan Mitchell came out and said that he wants to stay a Cavalier, but everybody says that. Oh, I want to be here. I want to be there. Why would he want to be a Cavalier? They're not going to win anything with the team that is built right now. And they're building their team around him. So even if they keep Allen and even if they keep Karis LeVert, do they have enough to win a championship? If they lose Darius Garland, no. They had a healthy team against the New York Knicks last year, and they lost in 5 games against the Knicks. So going into the playoffs, Garland wasn't even really healthy. So you look at right now, you look at where the Cleveland Cavaliers are and what the Cleveland Cavaliers need to do in the offseason. They need to add another superstar to play with Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And I don't know if they're going to get anybody, because there is nobody that's going to go and want to play for Cleveland except maybe LeBron James. But LeBron James already said that he wants $60 million a year. And if they're going to give Donovan Mitchell that money and they're going to give him $206 million, where are they going to find $60 million a year to give to LeBron James?
If I'm drafting Bronny in the first
It
round,
doesn't
they're going to
make
do that.
sense.
None
of it does.
None of it does with any of this saga with LeBron.
Oh, it's crazy.
Because LeBron always just likes to bring up his own off-season drama as it is. That doesn't need to be brought up.
But it has nothing to do with LeBron. That's the crazy thing. Just think about it. Cleveland, for years, they were a laughingstock. Why? And everybody knows because of LeBron James. And I'm not saying a laughing stock because everybody knew that LeBron James was going to go back and try to win a championship. Right. They burned his jerseys. He went to Miami, won 2 championships, went to 3 finals with the Miami Heat. And then he decided after he became a free agent, he's taking his talents back to Cleveland because Kyrie Irving was there. And then obviously Kevin Love, they made a move to bring Kevin Love over there. To me, this team has been not a good team for the last 3-4 years. They made the move with Utah. They gave away their future to bring in Donovan Mitchell. Okay. And listen, they have Mobley. I think they moved Mobley in the offseason. It doesn't fit. Him and Donovan Mitchell don't fit. That's my opinion, because when Donovan Mitchell wasn't in the lineup, Mobley all of a sudden changes his game. He's a better player. So if you watch that series against the Celtics, when Donovan Mitchell got hurt, Mobley was scoring 20-something points a game. He was giving you 8 to 7 rebounds. When he was in the lineup, he wasn't doing anywhere close to that. So to me, Mobley doesn't fit this offense. He doesn't fit this defense. So you have to move him. Now, Jared Allen does, but Jared Allen doesn't stay healthy. So none of it. Garland doesn't stay healthy. So you might as well trade Garland. You might as well get as much as you can for him. I mean, don't look at the Chicago Bulls. Don't try to bring any of those guys. Here's the guy that I would look at if I was the New York Knicks, DeRozan. I would look at DeRozan. He's a free agent. You don't have to pay him a lot of money. He's an older player. He is a good wing player, and he's a leader. That's the guy. If I would, yes, you can make if you want to make a move for Karl Anthony Towns. If you can't sign OG Anunoby and you make that move for Karl Anthony Towns, I bring in DeRozan. But going back to Cleveland, I think Cleveland needs to get that other player before they even think to give Donovan Mitchell that money. Because honest to God truth, you give Donovan Mitchell that 4-year, $206 million contract. How long is it going to take Donovan Mitchell to say, I want out? How long? Because this team, if Garland's gone and they decide to trade Mobley, what do they have? What are they bringing in? What are you getting for Mobley? That's the question. And maybe you get 2 pieces for him. Is it enough to win a championship with Donovan Mitchell? I'm going to tell you this right now. Donovan signs that 4-year deal. You're going to hear a lot of stories in the next year, 2 years. I want to be traded to the Knicks. You're going to hear that. I'm telling you right now, because if the Knicks can't get over the hump and they make a move next year in the offseason and they can, Donovan Mitchell is going to be on the tip of their lips. He is going to be at the tip of their lips because he's always wanted to go to New York. He's always wanted to play for his home team. And that makes a lot of sense. But this 4-year, $206 million contract makes no sense. But it's even more funnier when you're hearing Darius Garland so upset that if Donovan Mitchell gets what is it, 11 or $12 million more than you, that you want out? That doesn't make any sense. That tells me that Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are not getting along.
And also, you look at the way that Donovan Mitchell has developed his scoring a lot more. Darius Garland, I don't think, has done that to the level that he was drafted as. Now, granted, some of it has to do with the injuries. He missed his entire rookie year with a gruesome injury, and then all of a sudden, you look at somebody like Mobley, like you were saying. I think you look at the Cavs, the way they're built. They have a lot of these similar types of players that are just unfulfilled potential at this point. Maybe Mobley's that type of guy. Isaac Okoro was a 5th overall pick too. That hasn't developed in a way. Now he played better this year. He made that good leap, but was it a great leap? I don't know about that. Like that kind of thing is still unknown. So if you can get quality, like multiple pieces for Darius Garland, I would definitely make that trade. And I was always ones that always tried to advocate.
What would you trade for Darius Garland? What would you get for Darius Garland?
That's what I have to see.
I mean, if you were right now looking at teams now,
yeah, I'm trying to think who would need a point guard.
I would look at Orlando.
Okay.
I would look at Orlando. They have a lot of nice pieces, and you can get 1 or 2 players from them and squeeze 1 or 2 decent young players from them. I would do that. I'm not bringing in an older player.
No,
I am not bringing in an older player just because he's a star. Okay, I'm not doing it. I don't care. Like Zach LaVine, I would not do that.
No.
I would not do that.
He's too similar of a player to Donovan Mitchell. I don't think you would need that type of player.
No, I'm not talking about Donovan Mitchell. I'm talking about
you trade Garland and then you bring in Zach LaVine.
But
you basically have 2 Donovan Mitchells on your team, and it's
we've seen Cleveland do stupid things.
I know, and that's what I think they have to avoid, is because they have too many of the same player type. types. Like Mobley and Allen are very similar. Now Mobley can develop a little more with his shooting game and his offensive game. I think he still has the upside to do that. But they're basically the same type
So
of player.
good. Give me a team. How about Houston? They have some good young players.
Yeah, Houston makes sense because I think they have a lot of guys that are right now close to their expiring contracts too. That I think Cleveland could make that kind of thing work.
How about the Grizzlies? You're unsure with John Morant?
Yeah, or even that might actually be a good idea. Maybe trying to get one of their either Bain or Jackson. Maybe you could look at that. Yeah, I could see that kind of thing if you want to go for just one for similar types of players there. The Pelicans, another one that could be interesting too. You could look at if Zion becomes available again. Maybe you look at that.
I believe Dame Lillard is the guy that's going to Miami. Okay. I don't believe it. I never thought Donovan Mitchell was going to Miami. I never. When you heard that story that Donovan Mitchell was thinking there's a good chance that the Heat is going to make a run at for him, I did not believe Donovan Mitchell was going to be the guy. Okay. I thought it was going to be Dame Dillard. That's what Dame Lillard. I'm sorry. I call him Dame Dillard because they call him Dame. What do they call him? What's his name? Danny. What's his nickname? Dame Time. Whatever his name is. Dame Time is chance with a dime of a foot in his ass. All right. He's at the tail end of his career, and maybe adding Jimmy Butler with him. And is Jimmy going to sign? Now, if Jimmy becomes available, what does Pat Riley do with him? Does Pat Riley trade him and try to bring in some young pieces to play with a Dame Lillard? So I don't know what's going to happen in the offseason. We're predicting, and the playoffs aren't over yet, but I do believe there's some tension stuff going on in that locker room with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. I think there was a reason why Darius Garland didn't play a lot this year. I don't think it was because of injury. I don't think he wanted to play with Donovan Mitchell.
I also think you look at, you were talking about the Trae Young rumor as well, that maybe the point guard market.
Trae Young sucks.
I'm talking about.
Why would you want Trae Young?
No, I'm not saying he's great either, but I'm saying the point guard market is sort of thinning for a lot of these other undersized guys. We were talking about it with
I like the kid that the Hawks have, the point guard that they have that the Knicks were interested in.
Murray.
Yeah, Murray. I like him.
Yeah.
He's going to be available in the offseason too. I could see a guy like Murray being traded. Maybe the Knicks. I mean, I know the Knicks were interested in adding somebody like him at the trade deadline. Maybe that's the guy.
And again, it's just a difficult market for a lot of these point guards.
That was a bad goal by Scheffler.
Yeah, it was.
Matt
Chuck.
Yeah. I think that the whole Mitchell thing, they can't give up on Mitchell. It's that they just traded all these picks for him. They're going to lean into Mitchell and Mobley, even if it doesn't work. They have to hope that Mobley's going to make it work. They're going to move.
It's not going to happen. Mobley, I'm telling you, Fish.
They have to move Allen too, though. I think the thing is, we keep talking about guards.
Allen works with Donovan Mitchell. He does. He's not hogging up the ball. He's a rebounder. He's a blocker. He's a defender. I'm telling you, Mobley doesn't work. I'm going to tell you this
problem.
Right now.
I think the problem is Mobley, if he's going to work with him, he needs to be more of a higher usage rate guy. And they need a more spacing type of a 5 than Allen to make it work. And maybe they can take Garland and Allen and turn it into a type of center that can do something like that to play that type of game. But if I don't really know what they think they're doing, they've got pieces that don't fit. Not like Garland needs the ball in his hands. He wants to play around with the ball. He doesn't enjoy playing off a guy like Mitchell who needs the ball too. It's obvious they don't work together, and I guess they hate each other too.
Speedy,
so I mean, what are they going to do? One or the other.
Do you need the ball? Do you need the ball, Speedy?
Would need a ball, not
you balls. Have balls. You have balls.
Yes, so do you.
I do, but do you need the ball?
No,
you don't need the ball.
I don't need it.
Well, do you use it?
I don't know.
You don't know if you use your balls.
I'm not analyzing how I use my balls. Ask Carl. The Panthers scored a goal. On the board first, 2 minutes, 20 seconds.
I'm not utilizing it. You shouldn't utilize it.
That's your opinion.
Well, you got a chance. Oh, that wasn't even
close. A breakaway.
Oh, well, it's not.
Oh, God. Fish, I forgot the Florida Panthers have Ranger killer Evan Rodriguez on the team. So.
Yeah. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's get into the we going into the Ohtani? You want to go into your Ohtani scandal?
Sure.
I mean, that's an interesting story. MLB opened an investigation into a former Angels infielder, David Fletcher, in connections to gambling with an illegal bookie. The reports say that Fletcher didn't bet on baseball, but bet on other sports with bookie Matthew Boyer, who was involved in the scandal with Shohei Ohtani's interpreter. A former minor league pitcher, Colby Schultz, a close friend of Fletcher's, also bet on with Boyer and was caught betting on the Angels games. Fletcher and Ohtani were teammates with the Angels from 2018 until last season. MLB is likely to let Fletcher keep playing during the investigation. He is currently on the Braves AAA roster. I'm not going to go in and out of this Ohtani thing because you already know my opinion with Ohtani. I don't think it's hidden from this. I mean, everybody knows that Ohtani had something to do with this. Ohtani definitely had something to do with this betting scheme, this scandal, okay? Because it's hard to believe that he didn't know where $19 million of his money was, and this was going on for a significant amount of time. So it wasn't happening yesterday. It was happening within 3 years. This was going on for a couple of years. So for anybody to think that Shohei Ohtani knew nothing about it, it's ridiculous. Now, as far as David Fletcher, I don't know. We don't know the heavy inside of this investigation, but I'm going to tell you this. If the league investigated the Ohtani story in 2 weeks, this is going to be, a cinch. This should be a couple of days, okay? Because if you can investigate 3 years of bookie and keeping and all these offshore accounts, if you can find out and figure out what Ohtani was doing in 2 years, in 2 weeks, well, this was going on for how many years? And how much money was Fletcher throwing into it? It's probably not 19 million.
And when did he start? So
yeah, it's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And you know what's going to happen? David Fletcher's going to be, he's going to have the hammer dropped on him. You know why? Because nobody knows who he is. Nobody cares.
And the funny thing is, on those really bad Angels teams, he still might have been the third best hitter on the team after Trout and Ohtani.
How much you want to bet that David Fletcher probably gets suspended, maybe even thrown out? Now, obviously, he didn't bet on baseball, so he's not going to be thrown out of the league, but he is going to be suspended for like 60, 70 games. When they investigate this, they're going to investigate that he was betting on sports, which you're not allowed to bet on sports. You're definitely you're not supposed to bet on baseball, but you're not allowed to bet on sports if you're playing in the league, because that's what Rob Manfred said. You got to follow Mr. Manny. But I'm going to tell you this. To me, they're not going to shake this one off because it's not Shohei Ohtani. He is not a superstar player. Nobody gives a crap about David Fletcher. As a matter of fact, where does he play? The AAA Braves. Nobody gives a crap about the AAA Braves.
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen a direct link with other people involved in the case as well. Obviously,
this is a joke.
Obviously, Ippy was already the big one and already involved, but now Boyer being involved with all these different clients and encouraging that kind of behavior essentially in LA, where sports betting is illegal, still illegal in California. That might be even more. We were talking about Ippy being the mastermind of this operation, or this bank guy being the mastermind of this operation, or you were saying all the government's theories that we were going on with. Maybe it could be.
How do you investigate something that it's been going on for 3 years? Millions and millions of dollars. I don't even know. It could be hundreds of millions of dollars.
A lot we don't know about.
We don't know because it's a ring of players that were involved with this. But Shohei Ohtani was the big name. He was the superstar player. But everybody weans him out. Nobody knows anything. Nobody knows that Shohei Ohtani was involved, or if he was. And they figured that out in 2 weeks. So to me, it doesn't make any sense. Now, this ring has been going on for 3 years, 4 years, or however long it's been going, and there's so many names involved with it. It's not just one name or two names. I'm going to tell you this right now. There has got to be at least 15 to 20 players involved with this gambling ring. At least. And we're not hearing it because nobody gives a crap about those players. And right now, David Fletcher is another name that came out. Why? Because the league just wants to kick, the no-name players out there and, let's suspend him. Let's suspend this guy. Let's suspend that guy. And then we'll hear the nice, juicy stuff, a year from now or in the offseason after the playoffs are over. That's when you're here. Oh, Did you hear this guy was involved with it? Or did you hear that? Oh my God, Max Scherzer was involved with it. I mean, that's what you're going to hear.
Yeah,
Because that's the way baseball is.
Right. And there was also going to be enough states at that time, too, whenever Fletcher, the investigation in him might have started, and obviously Ohtani when he played. Because remember, they were teammates the entire time, 2018 and 23. That kind of thing still could have been happening even earlier. Now, the thing we know is 2021 at the moment of when the initial Ippe investigation started. But who said that the Boyer end of it couldn't even started earlier than that?
But Speedy, how do you investigate something when you have Ohtani throwing almost 19, 18, maybe even more than that, money in that? And there's so many offshore accounts.
Right.
There's so many of them. I'm going to tell you this right now.
Yeah.
You have 18, 19 million dollars. You can't put it in one account. You can't put it in two accounts. You're going to have to split it up in like 5 to 10 accounts, offshore accounts. And it can't be here in the United States because at that time in LA, it's still not legal.
Right.
So it had to be an offshore account. So you're going to tell me the FBI, who, by the way, can't find a horse's ass, okay? They can't find nothing. They can't discover nothing. The FBI is a bunch of blind idiots, okay? They can't discover nothing, okay? And I don't want to get into it on live radio because I know a lot of different stories off air that's going on here that the FBI can't figure out because they're a bunch of dopes. But they can figure out where the offshore accounts are with Ohtani and his interpreter, and they figure that out in 2 weeks. That's a bunch of bull. Okay, all they're doing and all the league is doing is protecting their best player, their best asset. That's the reason why. And David Fletcher is going to be the Jonte Porter of baseball. That's what he's going to be. You know what? We're going to suspend you for the season, buddy. And then, we'll have to investigate it more. Maybe we'll give you another chance. Nobody gives a crap about David Fletcher. I don't even know who the hell he is. I've never heard of him.
Yeah, and also I also look at the fact of these betting companies, because whether Boyer is connected in that regard to those companies, or are they going to take a downfall too if they're subject to this financial, I guess you would call it corruption at this point? Because if what we're thinking is true, 15 to 20 other players that could be involved.
It has to be.
I think so too, because there's enough states that when that investigation would have started, we're still illegal. That might be legal now, but there's enough baseball teams in those big enough states to do that. California in itself has 5 teams. Like, there could have been Dodgers players doing it. There could have been Padres players doing it. Like, there's enough of those types of things to make it work. And it just got legalized in New York in 2022. Who knows if there were Mets and Yankees players doing it? Enough of these big name teams, and even like you said, even just smaller name players on bigger name teams.
Who the hell is Colby Schultz?
Yeah.
Who the hell is he? I've never even heard of him.
No, he's never came up. He was in the Royals farm system.
That's what I mean. Nobody gives a crap about Colby Schultz. But O'Shea Ohtani was involved, and Colby Schultz. I can understand why David Fletcher, Colby Schultz, they're betting on sports because they don't make enough money.
Right.
They're trying to make they're trying to make a living for their families. They're in the minor leagues. What are they making? $50,000 a year?
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani was making millions and millions of dollars off just endorsements. Just endorsements.
Right.
So what is it? What is $19 million? And everybody's going to say, well, that's my point. It's only $19 million. You're going to tell me that this man didn't know $19 million was missing out of his account? What are you, nuts? It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. And the fact that the FBI or whatever they're calling themselves is investigating this, here's what you're going to investigate. I think you have a better chance of finding out when Speedy is going to shave his balls than finding out when this is going to come to a head. Because I don't think you are. I think this is ridiculous. I think this is, to me, not sellable. And this is just another story for baseball to look like a bunch of, hypocrites. That's what they are.
No, they have a hypocritical history.
They're a hypocritical organization. They're run by a bunch of idiots, including one that I can't stand. Okay. And another thing, what are they going to do when Rob Manfred retires? Who are they going to put in that spot? I can't wait until that idiot takes over for this league, because it's not going to be Theo Epstein anymore, because now he owns a piece of the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, again, it's just a sport that's drowned in controversy with every era of baseball. Like,
what a crock.
Even before Bud Selig and Rob Manfred. I'm sure the commissioners before that threw a lot of things under the rugs with the spitballs and all the, like you're talking about all the sticky stuff and all that stuff, all the cheating back then.
It's been going on forever.
Yeah, it's a sport of controversy. And again, even with like expansion and even with segregation laws at that time, like it took them a while to really adapt to it because baseball was one of those things that was brought in by these richer owners, these businessmen at that time too, and they're sticking with these same kind of philosophies. And now you have another one coming in with a betting scandal that who knows how many company executives could be involved in that too, in addition to government guys.
Hey guys, have we talked about Artie Moreno yet?
No. Oh yeah.
He somehow has escaped some criticism. Can we go back to the fact that he's had a pervasive culture of, a guy died of a drug overdose. Apparently, this whole thing started where Boyer met Ipe at a 2021 poker game in the clubhouse of the Angels, which means he's allowing these types of figures into his clubhouse. And not, specifically, but the type of neglect that it takes of an owner to have this type of culture in his club. I think I don't understand why we're not talking about that. This is the guy who's the billionaire who's supposed to be in charge of this group of people, trying to lead them the right way. We know they're not leading them to the playoffs anytime soon, despite the fact Trout keeps staying there. It's not going to happen. And it's probably because he doesn't care about really anything other than making money. Because look what's going on in that clubhouse. I mean, it's getting egg on the face in the league. That's why they're going to take a little initiative now. But I mean, we need to criticize this guy. This guy's been a bad owner for a long time.
But he's not the only owner. This has been going on forever. I mean, everybody wanted to throw Steinbrenner to the wolves. Oh, he's a horrible owner. Look what he did. 2 years he was out of baseball, and he was the reason why baseball was saved. He was the reason why all these players are making millions and millions of dollars. People forget that George Steinbrenner was the one that really transitioned the game and the money and what these guys are making. So they should be kissing his ass, okay? But they won't. That's why he's not in the Hall of Fame. You know who's in the Hall of Fame? Bud Selig. He's the one in the Hall of Fame. The guy that was okay with the steroids and not okay with the steroids. Now he's keeping Pete Rose out of the league, keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. Or you know what you're doing? You gave the reins to Rob Manfred, who doesn't know his ass from the tailbone. He doesn't even know how to throw a baseball. And when he comes out and he speaks up for baseball and speaks up for what the game is and what the game should be, why are you changing the rules then? Why are you changing these stupid rules? Why are you putting pizza boxes on the play on the field? Okay, it's disgraceful. I don't like it. Listen, I didn't like the shift. I was one of the guys. I was all for it. This pitching clock thing, this is ridiculous. It's dumb. I don't care what any pitcher tells me. If they like it or they love it, it's stupid. It never went on in those days. It shouldn't be going on now. And to me, right now, the way baseball is and where baseball is going. To me, it's just a mockery because you let Ohtani get away with this.
Carl says if they could get Tim Donaghy, they could get anyone. Well, yeah, but this is a much more complicated case than the one Tim Donaghy was going on. Tim Donaghy was just fixing games, individual preseason games. This is a whole lot bigger.
It would bother me. It would bother me right now that we're speaking about David Fletcher and Colby Schultz, and nobody's speaking about Ohtani anymore. He's free. He's free to do whatever he wants. Everything's good. He leads the league in batting average, whatever. I don't know what the numbers right now, so don't quote me on this, but he's in almost every offensive statistic right now. He's the best player in baseball. And because baseball wanted to pay off, you heard it from me, pay off the FBI or whoever was investigating this story just to protect their own player, they should be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely ashamed. And as far as Moreno, I don't give a crap what Moreno does. He's gone anyways. Whatever the hell he is, he's flying a kite, hanging out with God or Jesus Christ. I could care less what Artie Moreno is doing. The fact is, though, this has been going on a long time. And the fact that Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame because of it, it's despicable. It's disgraceful. Okay. He has nothing to do with baseball. He's making a living off of autographs. Okay. Because baseball will not let him back into the game because he bet against the other team he was playing, he was betting for his team, not against his team, which is despicable. And they've done their research. They investigated that he never bet against his team. So what did he do wrong? What did he do wrong? He didn't cheat. As a matter of fact, he just bet on his team because he thought his team was better.
Carl says, as well as Errol says with steroids, everyone is doing it, then it's fine. Not when it goes to financial things.
First of all, and I've said, and I'm going to go deeper into this. Baseball needs Ohtani. Nobody said, Keith, nobody said that baseball doesn't need Ohtani. Baseball doesn't need a cheater. Okay? You've been saying, and nobody wants, you guys are all against steroids and all that other stuff. Betting's cheating. So why is Ohtani okay? You're okay with Ohtani playing baseball after he cheated. And don't give me this crap. He didn't know anything about it, which every analyst that we have spoken to on this show believes that he knew something about this. It is a joke. This is ridiculous. And the fact that baseball is just shrugging it off. Who cares? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Rob Manfred's running the league. He's an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
Probably wears a wig.
Who knows? Maybe he's taking some of the money in himself.
No, but we're bringing up Sandy Alderson. Oh, yeah, let's go into that craziness of Sandy Alderson. Nobody gives a crap about Sandy Alderson. Sandy Alderson, how many times has he had cancer in the last 10 years? I think that's more of a story than this crap that he has with the Mets. That he's faking injuries.
The Mets don't know how to manage
Give
injuries.
me a
They're
break.
nevertheless faking injury reports and creating stuff that doesn't exist.
You know what? They'll kick Sandy Alderson out of baseball because he was faking injuries, but they're going to keep Ohtani because he was betting on baseball. It's ridiculous because this is the way the league works. This is the way sports works. It's all about the stars. As we heard LeBron James come out and say what he said, which is absolutely ridiculous. So it just, to me, I think baseball needs to open up their eyes and stop with this, okay? Stop going after the little fish. Go after the big fish, okay? The big fish is the one that's making hundreds of millions of dollars, okay? Hundreds. Why the hell was he a part, or why was he involved with a betting scandal when he didn't need the money? He didn't need the money. What the hell is he doing? And that tells me that he thinks he's bigger than the game. That's what I think. Am I wrong, Fish? I believe Shohei Ohtani believed he was bigger than the game.
No one believes that he didn't know anything about this. It's crazy. I think they want us to believe he's Manti Te'o. Like that's what that he's that level of gullible, that he's that level of dumb, or he's just so wealthy, and us common folk can't understand the different types of accounts that he must have, so that sure, 19 million, you just could misplace it for a couple of years. What are you talking about? There's no way. His best friend on the team, they say, was Fletcher. His best friend on the team. They had all the handshakes. They got all these clips. I looked it up when we were doing the research for this. It's all these memes of how they looked at each other and stuff like that. This is his boy.
They kiss each other? Do we have a picture of that?
I mean, I don't have those pictures. I mean, I can manipulate pictures, but
I know you can. Very good at that.
The thing is, what are they think we're stupid? Do they really think we're all stupid? Is that that's Manfred, though?
Speaking of stupid, the Pirates announced that Barry Bonds will be inducted into their Hall of Fame on August 24th. Bonds was a first-round pick by the Pirates in 1985 and won 2 MVPs with them in 90 and 92. In 7 years with the Pirates, Bonds had 176 home runs, 251 stolen bases, 556 RBIs, and a .883 OPS. Bonds is baseball's all-time leader with 762 home runs and 2,558 walks. Bonds has run out of eligibility for the Baseball Hall of Fame on the main ballot and was also rejected in 2022 by the Hall of Fame's Contemporary Era Committee. So here's what I'm going to say about this, okay? Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. There is no argument that Barry Bonds is one of the greatest outfielders, one of the greatest center fielders we've ever seen. He won 7 Gold Gloves as an outfielder over there with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay, 7. All right. This guy was the best defensive player in the National League in 7 straight years, practically. 7 straight years against a lot of great defensive players in the outfield. That's one. Number 2, for a guy his size, he stole 251 stolen bases, over 400 stolen bases. 400! Tell me a player in baseball history that had over 400 home runs and over 400 stolen bases. The answer, he's the only one. He is the only player in Major League history to do that. That's number 2. Number 3, steroids was bad. The steroid time was obviously illegal for baseball. It was a part of baseball. It saved baseball. So everybody that wants to sit here and want to attack Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, great. You want to attack him? By all means. We interviewed Rafael Palmeiro. He said all those guys should be in the Hall of Fame, including Roger Clemens, who he couldn't stand. You're going to sit here today, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give a shout out to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Long overdue. This man should have been inducted into your Hall of Fame 20 years ago. Why he's not makes no sense. And it only shows your organization to be stupid. Because to have a player of this magnitude, he is your best player besides Roberto Clemente. And he's better than Roberto Clemente. Let's be honest. The numbers would tell you that he is. And rest in peace, Roberto Clemente. He got into a plane accident. A sensational player. Barry Bonds was the greatest player of your franchise history. The greatest. And now you're inducting him into the Hall of Fame? What the hell is wrong with your organization? Are you that stupid? And again, to get back to Barry Bonds and what he did wrong. Was he a good man? No. There are a lot of guys. Albert Bell wasn't a good man. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Because David Ortiz kissed everybody's ass. He should be in the Hall of Fame as well as he is. He shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. He cheated. But, nobody looks at that. Nobody cares that David Ortiz cheated because he's loved by everybody. I just think it's ridiculous. These writers don't know what the hell they're doing. Okay? They have ruined the game. They have ruined the Hall of Fame nominations. They've ruined it. Because look who's been inducted in the Hall of Fame. Harold Baines. Okay? Harold Baines. I didn't even want to get into Tony La Russa. I wanted to ask Tony that when I met him and when I was interviewing him. I really wanted to ask him why he was one of the voters and why he voted Harold Baines in there, because Harold Baines is not a Hall of Famer. I don't care how many hits he had. I don't care how many runs he had. The guy played 20-something years, 25 years. Me and you would have had 3,000 hits if I played that long in the major leagues.
Half the amount of home runs Barry Bonds had in his career.
That's one. And I think Tim Raines was a great player. He really was. He's not a Hall of Famer. Okay? He is not Ricky Henderson. He is not Barry Bonds. He is not any of those players. Okay? I'm sorry, but I'm not going to sit here and cry about something to be wrong or true when I already know what the truth is. Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. There's no question. And to go back to the whole Pittsburgh Pirates and what their organization's all about, they've been a joke. Oh, yeah. They've been a joke. How many championships have they won in the last 25 years? 0. How many championships have they won in the last 30 years?
Also 0. 79 was their last one.
I rest my case. All right? The only thing that really stands out from that organization for when the organization was good was Barry Bonds. Right. That's it. That's all. Not Bobby Bonilla, okay? All right, who's still getting paid by the New York Mets. All right?
Another joke.
He's probably been inducted into the Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Fame before Barry Bonds, which is ridiculous. I don't know if it to be true, but I'm willing to bet you he was. This is bad. I'm sorry. Baseball is real. And this goes back to Bud Selig. This goes back to Bud, the used car salesman who took over the league as the commissioner. Right. This man didn't know his ass from the baseball. Okay. And if he did, he probably shoved the baseball up his ass. Okay. And maybe he was, there are some strippers that like to pop, ping pong balls out of there. You know what? Maybe he likes to pop it out of his ass. I don't know. But I will tell you this. Sitting here today and wondering why Barry Bonds isn't in the Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Fame. How about this? Pete Rose was finally inducted into the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. Pete Rose, the greatest hitter of all time. I don't understand this. I don't. Pete Rose didn't do steroids. He bet against the other teams he played against. And this guy has been pushed out of baseball. Does that make sense? It doesn't. It really doesn't. Shohei Ohtani was doing it, and everybody's patting him on the back, patting him on the ass. Good job, Shohei. You got away with it.
Yeah, Baseball Hall of Fame is hypocritical enough as it is, as we've discussed many times, of who they put in and who they don't. I mean, there was a year they didn't even put anyone in.
Is the press going to keep Shohei Ohtani out of the Hall of Fame because of this? Not a chance in hell.
Probably not.
Not a chance in hell, because there was no proof that he knew anything about it.
Yeah.
Which I think is ridiculous.
And that's the problem with a lot of these older writers that have those kinds of grudges with players, have these kinds of grudges with certain teams, you would imagine as well. We were talking about it with the Mitchell report too, how much bias they had with the Red Sox as well. And they were keeping players of similar numbers from other teams out. Not that David Ortiz isn't a Hall of Famer, but why is David Ortiz getting in on the first try? And Edgar Martinez was a good DH too. It took him 6 tries or something.
Jeff Bagwell. Does anybody not think
that early? No.
Does anybody not think that Jeff Bagwell was on steroids? I mean, come on. Does anybody see what Jeff Bagwell looks like?
Yep.
I mean, I'm just being serious. I want to hear about Joe Thomas and what he looks like. I mean, the guy is built like an ox. I mean, Joe Thomas, who was an offensive lineman, who was a big dude, he's like 240, 230 pounds, and he's ripped. Okay. I'm not speaking about that because we know what Joe Thomas is doing. I mean, his workout plan is ridiculous. His fasting, his eating habits are unbelievable. So let's keep Joe Thomas out of it as a football player. Has anybody seen what Jeff Bagwell looks like? Has anybody seen what Mike Piazza looks like? Now, honestly, do you think that they were on steroids? Mark McGwire, go look what he looks like. This guy had the biggest forearms I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah. I've never seen forearms like that before in my life. And by the way, Tony La Russa said the greatest player he's ever coached was Albert Pujols. Yep. Does anybody think that Albert Pujols never did steroids? Come on, guys. Be honest with yourselves. I'm not going to sit here and make up stories. No, there was never found that he did anything. So I'm not causing consumptions and saying things that are, obviously false. Probably people will say, oh, that's false. Don't use that. Don't bring up Albert Pujols.
No, they're just going to say you're making conspiracy theories.
Hey, listen, the world is conspiracy.
Well, yeah, especially in the world of like how you're going to get muscle mass on you in a home run hitting era too. It's still a home run hitting era even today with all the advanced metrics and all these bigger athletes at other positions too. Like look at somebody like Ellie De La Cruz on the Reds right now. He's a 6'7" shortstop. You never would have seen that like 30 years ago.
Here's the thing. If you look at Barry Bonds and you compare his numbers after he left Pittsburgh, okay, 7 Gold Gloves, 176 home runs, 251 stolen bases, 556 RBIs, and 883 OPS. Okay. Right there would tell you at the time that he was as dominant as he was in a 7-year span, he was a borderline Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Borderline. Okay. That's a center fielder. A center fielder. Center fielders are not expected to have power in their bats. Go look at the numbers. Right. Center fielders are not powerful hitters in those days. So let's keep it clear here. If you look at Andrew Jones, okay? Andrew Jones was a fantastic defender. Andrew Jones did steroids. Okay? He did. And is Andrew Jones ever going to get into the Hall of Fame? Probably not.
No. Doesn't seem like it.
Andrew Jones, I think, won 12 Gold Gloves or something of that magnitude.
Yeah, which I think is tied with Ken Griffey Jr.
Which is ridiculous. 12 Gold Gloves. Let me ask you a question. Does steroids help you catch a ball? Does steroids help you locate a ball? Does steroids actually help you climb over a wall and catch a ball before it goes into the home run area or over the fence? The answer is no. If you win 12 Gold Gloves as a center fielder, and even offensively, a subpar player at best, you're a Hall of Famer. That's a fact. Look at the guys that are getting it all. Roy Halladay wasn't a Hall of Famer, but he's in the Hall of Fame.
Barry Bonds' Giants career might be better than Jeff Bagwell's entire career when it comes to hitting numbers.
And what is he saying over here? Speedy, can you clarify Errol's points here? We are confused.
We're talking about the hypocrisy of the Hall of Fame and why some steroid guys get in and are loved forever, and then the other ones are bashed like it's like enhanced and saved their careers, which it was not the case for Barry Bonds whatsoever.
Just because you have never been proven to do steroids doesn't mean you weren't on it.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
And how do we know Jeff Bagwell wasn't on that what was that?
The Mitchell report.
The Mitchell report. Yeah. We don't know if Bagwell was on that Mitchell report. We don't know if any of those guys that are in the Hall of Fame, Mike Piazza wasn't on the Mitchell report.
Didn't you say you thought Pudge Rodriguez should have been?
100%.
Yeah.
Pudge Rodriguez was definitely on steroids. 100% was on steroids. He was definitely on the Mitchell report. Definitely. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, and David Ortiz's names got, pushed out to the press. And by the way, David Ortiz is still in the Hall of Fame. Manny Ramirez will never see himself in the Hall of Fame. Meanwhile, Manny Ramirez is one of the greatest right-handed power hitters I've ever seen. Okay. Even better power hitter than David Ortiz was.
Right.
And you can say whatever you want. Carl, you want to call him Payrod? That's fine. Call him Payrod.
That doesn't take away from his
how
ability.
Great he was.
Right. And his ability without, even before they investigated the steroids in full at that time, because most of that happened, one, when he was in the minors, the first two accusations of it were when he were in the minors. And also his career before he went to the Yankees is still better than some guys' entire careers, too.
ESPN's Jeff Darlington reports that the world's #1 golfer, Scott Scheffler, was pulled over and eventually arrested before his PGA Championship tee time Friday. Traffic was stopped that morning when the security guard named John Mills was struck by a bus. Scheffler tried to maneuver the traffic to get to the course, and an officer pulled him over with a flashlight, knocking on the car window. Scheffler then started screaming at the cop and eventually led to him tackling the cop and pinning him to a car door. Scheffler was released without bail after 3 hours later and got his tee time after PGA delayed it due to the accident. Scheffler finished with a -13, tied for 8th. First of all, did anybody watch the video? Did anybody see the video?
Crazy.
It is the funniest video I've ever seen. To see a golfer, okay? Now, you wouldn't expect a guy like Scottie Scheffler to do something like this.
Right.
Because he's a quiet guy. He doesn't really he's not that type of person. I don't
Great
watch
family guy, yeah.
Yes, I don't really watch a lot of golf, okay? I watch the US Open, I watch the big sport, the big championships. That's what I watch. You know what I mean? I've been to I've been to the US Open twice. I've seen some of these guys. I've interviewed some of these guys. But when you see somebody like Scottie Scheffler do something like that, that's not only funny, it's something that you probably will never see again. And to me, you could see somebody like, a Phil Mickelson do something like that, or a Tiger Woods do something like that. You would never see Scottie Scheffler do it. Like you said, he's one of the biggest family men. He donates so much money to his organization, so many different organizations. I would have never thought that this would have happened. And by the way, I was very surprised that the PGA let him play in the tournament. I was very surprised. When a video like this comes out like that, that embarrasses the tournament. It embarrasses who he is as a player and embarrasses the organization as a whole. I would have sat him out because to me, what they were trying to do, and I understand he's the best player in the world. Okay. He's a fantastic talent. He's been the best player in the world for almost a year now. And they're trying to build their product again. There is no Tiger Woods in the game anymore. Right. There's no real big superstar. So Scottie Scheffler, who's a quiet guy, maybe this turns him into a superstar. I don't know, because after watching Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore, I've seen it a million times. And what Happy Gilmore did on what he did on the on the golf course. This wasn't even on the golf course.
No.
And so not only was this funny, I was shocked when I watched the video because I didn't hear about it until Saturday, guys. I was DJing. And what is he saying? Nobody cared about Scottie.
That was not true at all, by the way, Keith. When I woke up on Friday about 11 or so, I saw it all over Twitter. Everyone was tracking it big time.
First, and here's another thing. Go look at Saturday's newspaper.
Yeah.
Go look at Saturday's daily news. Go look at Saturday's Newsday, and who was on the back page of it? It was Scottie. It was Scottie Scheffler
in the mugshot. Was it the mugshot one? Because that picture I saw right away that leaked like an hour after like he got arrested. So that got public quickly.
The whole thing got public.
Yeah.
And everybody says nobody cares that he got arrested. Okay. Obviously, people care that he got arrested. Nobody, if anything, it's going to help build his product. It's going to build his brand because now people look at Scottie Scheffler as a bad boy.
Yeah, right.
That's what they look at him. What was he drinking? What was he smoking? Was he? Yeah. Right? What did the cop really say to him that the video didn't really catch?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know, but to see him get out of the car and tackle that cop. That was hilarious.
And
that
again,
was funny.
I think the cop was actually also disciplined in a different way too for whatever he said. So there could have been definitely something shady with that kind of thing too. But the PGA looks bad in this spot for like making all these tee times not.
I don't think it made them look bad. You wonder why they didn't suspend him.
Yeah,
then not let him. I understand he's a great player. He's the best player in the world. But why is he playing in the PGA Championship after that happened? You're trying to protect the brand. You're trying to teach these kids that want to become golfers not to do what Scottie Scheffler did.
Right.
I mean,
and maybe that's part of the new look they're trying to have him be. Because
what is that?
I don't know. Yeah, because golf is always thought of. It's one of these old school gentleman sports from the 15th century. So they're trying to make it more fresh.
Go sleep with 1,000 prostitutes.
Right. They're trying to make it fresh, just like you were saying. They don't have that Tiger Woods, that one singular icon to do that. Now they're trying to be a little different with the live golfing now, trying to make it like where they can get more money, like you see in college football and college basketball with the NIL deals. They're trying to do that kind of thing with live golfers. That's why a lot of guys like Phil Mickelson are transferring over there too. So that kind of thing is a little different, but at the same time, yeah, they're still stuck with those old school precedents.
First of all, I didn't say suspend him. I said suspend him for the PGA tournament, that championship. Suspend him for that, not for the whole year after it. I just suspend him for that tournament because that's the story. So everybody now, obviously, it helped the tournament because everybody was following him. Everybody was following him throughout social media. I think millions and millions. Go look at his Twitter account. His Twitter went up like 300,000 followers.
Oh yeah,
after that happened. I mean, people started to love him.
Right.
So I mean, it shows a little bit more that hey, maybe America likes a bad boy. Maybe you need something like that. Everybody knew Tiger Woods was an ass. Everybody knew that he was an ass. But Scottie Scheffler, I did not think Scottie Scheffler was going to do something like that.
Yeah.
And the way it was caught on video, because every cop has to have a camera on him. That was funny. I mean, I wonder if whatchamacallit again can get that. Could Fish get that video?
He's not here right now. I think he had to leave with his wife was sick, so I think he had to leave.
All right,
he's not here with us right now.
All right, hopefully Fish is okay.
Absolutely.
His wife is okay, but you know, it's interesting when you look at the story. This is a crazy story. Now, obviously, with golf needs to get on top, and this was a story that put them on top for the whole weekend. When we're speaking about basketball and hockey and all I mean, if you go look at the Daily News and you look at Newsday and you look at the back pages of it, it was Scottie Scheffler. I mean, so it took away from the Yankees. It took away from the Mets' stupidity and how bad they really are. It takes away the Rangers going into the Eastern Conference Finals against the Florida Panthers, and it takes away with the Knicks getting knocked out of the playoffs with Indiana.
Right. Literally the day after the Rangers advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, this still was followed dramatically.
The number one story.
Yeah, they followed and they tracked it like they did with anything else, with like it was a reality show type thing. Like they were curious, oh, is he going to get out? Is he going to get a chance to actually hit the ball? How well did he do after that?
Did you hear his press conference after the tournament?
I didn't hear the conference, but I'm sure it was pretty vocal.
No, he didn't say anything about it.
Oh.
He actually didn't even speak about it. I guess the PGA went to him and said, don't speak about it.
I would think that
Because
more.
obviously it's going to be investigated. He's going to be sued. Obviously.
Right.
This is a millionaire. This is one of the greatest golfers in the world right now. And he is definitely going to be sued by that cop that he attacked. I mean, there's no way he's not getting sued or he's going to pay that cop off because of it. And the cop would probably fake an injury and say, oh, my elbow's hurting me, or my finger, you hurt my finger, and something like that. And he's going to get $1 million out of it because of what he did. And if he doesn't pay it, PGA will pay it because they're a multi-billion-dollar organization.
Right.
So,
and it doesn't say the cop didn't do anything wrong. He might have, but still, it wasn't the operation that needed to happen.
the crazy thing is, I didn't hear the audio end of it. I'm sure he said something that irked Scott. I'm sure of it, but it wasn't captured when I saw the video. I didn't hear it, so I don't know what irked him enough to get out of the car and tackle him.
Yeah.
So it is a funny story. It really is, and it really gave the PGA the headlines.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's good for the PGA. I think it's good for golf. But I'm interested to see how this all is going to break out or shake out. And is Scottie going to go and do a national, apology to this cop, or maybe meet the cop at his precinct and shake his hands and shake their hands and, smack him on the ass like you like.
Give him VIP access to the U.S. Open.
Speaking of asses, I'm just kidding. Let's go to our sports minute. But when we come back, we will be talking to a first-time fan of our show. I don't know if he's a fan of our show, but we're a fan of his because we love his partner. We will be talking to Draft Countdown NFL analyst Brian Bosarge here on the Sports Loudmouth. But first, Tommy Scoops on our Sports Minute.
This is the Sports Loudmouth Sports Minute.
Are you ready to get loud?
With Tommy Scoops.
As promised, everybody knows what time it's for. The Loudmouth Sports Minute with Tommy Scoops. And getting straight into it, over in the NBA, after making the All-NBA first team, Mavericks point guard Luka Doncic is now eligible for a Supermax contract worth $346 million in 5 years, making it the largest in NBA history. Fellow All-NBA first teamer Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is also eligible for a Supermax contract, and his deal could see him making $80 million in just a single season. Over $80 million just a single season. Over in the NFL, Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott is not worried about getting a new deal. Prescott is currently playing on his last year, cited his level of patience to get a new contract, also saying he doesn't play for money. Lastly, in the NFL, the 49ers are optimistic that linebacker Dre Greenlaw will come back this season stronger. Greenlaw, who tore his Achilles 12 plays into the Super Bowl, linebacker coach Johnny Holland is looking forward to his return this season. Now it's going to be time for Scoop to Scores. We're in the MLB. Currently, Pittsburgh has a 5-4 lead over San Francisco. Philadelphia has an 11-4 lead over Texas. And Boston has an 8-4 lead over Tampa Bay, with Toronto having a 9-0 lead over Chicago. Currently in the NHL right now, Florida has a 1-0 lead over the Rangers, and in the NBA, the Timberwolves have a 62-58 lead over the Mavericks. That is currently all the time I have for you guys right now. I'm going to kick it back to the boys for their next guest on the Sports Loudmouth.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy, the Speedster, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, our show will be moved to Tuesdays. It will be Tuesdays and Thursdays moving forward starting next week. It won't be Wednesdays and Thursdays. And the reason why is we're going to spread out the content, and it's for the fans and for all the things that we do offset of our show, it's going to open up many opportunities for us to do some live shows as well. And this guy has never been on our show. We were very excited to have him on. We are now speaking to Draft Countdown NFL analyst, our friend or our new friend, Brian Bosarge. Brian, what's up, buddy?
Hey, guys, I appreciate you having me on tonight.
Well, we're very happy to have you on. We had your partner on a little bit, what was it, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, Shane Hallam's been on our show 5 times.
Yes. And I'll tell you this, he's one of the best in the business. And I've checked out some of your stuff and his stuff together. You guys are fantastic. Before we get into your thoughts of the draft and the NFL season, how did you guys meet? How did you guys connect with one another?
I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I live in Mobile, Alabama. I have my entire life. So the Senior Bowl is here every year. And Shane was down with Scott Wright, the original owner of Draft Countdown. And I met Shane through Twitter, and we connected at one of the Senior Bowl practices, and we just started hanging out. And then, we just became friends. And then when Scott got out of the draft business, he reached out to myself and Shane and asked us to keep Draft Countdown going. He said he didn't want to see it die on the vine there. So we kind of merged our talents together and reformed Draft Countdown.
I will say this. I love the Dr. Pepper sweatshirt. All right. It's definitely
it's a t-shirt. It's way too hot here to wear a sweatshirt.
Oh, it's way too hot over here. It's 85 degrees today. And I don't like this weather. I am sorry. I don't like it. I know Alabama is probably much more hot than it is over here, but I hate this weather. But that's just me. I love the football weather. I like the fall, winter weather. I like it when it gets cold. I can wear a jacket, don't have to deal with sweating. But anyways, the NFL draft. And obviously we're here in New York, and a lot of New York fans were very intrigued on what the Giants were going to do. There were stories coming out that they were trying to move up, maybe to go after a quarterback, maybe to go after Harrison Jr. Who knows? But they get their guy, Malik Neighbors, which everybody predicted was going to happen. What were your thoughts to the New York Giants? Did you believe that the Giants were going to move up for a quarterback?
I really didn't. I mean, at one point, maybe I talked myself into them moving up with New England at pick 3 and taking Drake May. But then I kind of just got off of it on my final mock draft. I think I had them getting Neighbors at 6. So I hit that one right. But Neighbors, I feel like if you're going to get a quarterback, I mean, do you want to get the third one off the board, or do you want to get the first one off the board? And obviously they weren't getting all the way up to 1. So I'm no fan of Daniel Jones. I don't know how you guys are with Daniel Jones. I wasn't a fan of Daniel Jones coming out of college. I'm 5-6 years later, still not a fan of Daniel Jones as a professional quarterback. So at some point the Giants are going to have to move on, I believe, but I did not think that that was the case.
So I was going to ask about the process. Oh, something's not going.
Got it.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask about the process of the trading up, like what it was going to take. Did you see it in this draft? Because you saw the top 3 quarterbacks are going to go off the board, and the Patriots were also trying to deal with the Vikings that were looking to move up. The Raiders were looking to move up for Drake May, and now we're hearing that he's struggling right now. Are you concerned with that kind of thing with the Patriots fed in Drake May?
I will be honest. Any quarterback I think ended up with the Patriots was going to struggle, just because I thought they were the worst situation for any of these rookies to go to. Their roster was probably, if not the worst, one of the worst in the league, and it really still is. So there's a lot of work to do there, and I was afraid that whichever quarterback they ended up with was going to, struggle out of the blocks just because of the talent surrounding them. But yeah, for the Giants to come up even to 3, it would have cost them probably 6 this year, at the very least a 3rd round pick, because they didn't have a 2nd, right? Because they traded it to Carolina. Yep. So you would have had to give up 6, your 3rd, and probably at the very least a 1 next year. That was a steep price, and that was part of the reason I couldn't rationalize them moving up from 6 to 3 to get the 3rd quarterback off the board.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Draft Countdown NFL analyst Brian Bosarge. Brian, when you look at the league and obviously the New York Jets being a team that everybody's been talking about since they brought in Aaron Rodgers, they lost Aaron Rodgers in 4 plays last year. They didn't have much of a season. They had a chance to see Zach Wheeler again, as I know, because I'm a Jet fan. And I say this being very, very nice. you look at the offseason that they had, and I was very surprised that Olu was sitting there at number 11. I did not expect that. I really didn't. I thought he was going 7 to Tennessee. They decided to go after the Alabama kid. What was it? Latham. JC Latham. I obviously his size. They liked his size and his agility, his strength. That's what they liked, his strength at the combine. I think they were reaching with him. I think Olu was the best pass rushing offensive lineman in his draft. Were you surprised that he was sitting there for the New York Jets at number 11?
I wasn't surprised
10,
that he was.
10, I'm sorry.
I wasn't surprised that he was sitting there as much as that maybe the Titans taking J.C. Latham. I thought they might have gone in a different direction, but Brian Callahan has proven to be one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, and if that's the guy he wanted for that team, I'm not going to argue with him at all. I like J.C. Latham as well, maybe just not at 7. But Olu Fashanu was my number 2 offensive tackle in this class and was he was 13th on my board. So he fell right about where he needed to go. His hand size came up a question after the combine, which I've never seen an offensive lineman with 8.5-inch hands. Just weird. I don't think it's going to be an issue because it doesn't show up on tape that it's an issue. But Fashanu was my number 1 offensive tackle for most of the process, and then I finally started digging deep into Joe Alt and realized what Shane had been saying for 3 years prior to that, and I finally got around to seeing it and moved Alt ahead. But Fashanu, I think, I don't know that he's going to start week 1 because of the veteran tackles that the Jets brought in, but history tells us one of those guys is going to get hurt at some point. So Fashanu should plug and play. Ideally, probably on the left side, but could fit on the right side as well.
So we saw 2 very interesting picks at quarterback in the later of the first round. The Falcons, number 8, taking Michael Penix when everyone thought he was going to fall to the second round. And then Bo Nix to the Broncos at number 12 as the 6th quarterback off the board, which actually it was funny. When we had Shane Hallam on the last time, he was mentioning that it's not going to happen because no, there's never been 5 quarterbacks in the top 10. And this year it broke the pattern for that. So what were your thoughts on those 2 fits as for the teams and for the prospect?
As far as fits go, Bo Nix, I mean, I think everybody thought that he was going to end up in Denver. I mean, I don't think that pick and fit is a surprise. Sean Payton sees Drew Brees in him, accuracy and size and quick release and all that. He sees Drew Brees in Bo Nix. At number 12, didn't see that coming. But the puzzling pick I think everybody in the first round was Michael Penix to Atlanta, just because they just paid Kirk Cousins, $100+ million. So obviously you don't expect them to draft a quarterback at 8. But I mean, Cousins' injury history here lately hasn't been the best either. So you're hedging that, I guess, or they're saying that their succession plan at quarterback is great for the next 10 years now. I don't buy that. I think at a team, especially in their division that's weak sauce, maybe the worst division in the NFL, the NFC South, I think they should have attacked and got a position that could help them immediately and maybe not a quarterback that may play 3 years from now.
It's so funny when we speak about the quarterbacks and everybody says, oh, if you're lucky, being that this is a quarterback class, you get 2 good quarterbacks in that class. And if you go back, when we look at guys like the Baker Mayfield draft, and we look at Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen, everybody, including yours truly, thought that Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen was the best quarterbacks in that class. Then you look at Lamar Jackson, and then you look at Josh Allen, and then even Baker Mayfield, the turnover that he's become as a quarterback over there with Tampa. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You look at this quarterback class, there's a lot of questions to this quarterback class. I've heard that May hasn't looked good so far in rookie camps. I've heard that. I've also heard that Daniels, some of these press guys think that he's not even ready to start in the beginning of the season, which when you draft a guy at number 2, he's expected to be plug and play. He's supposed to start. And now people think that he might not be able to start in the beginning of the season with Washington. What are your thoughts to some of these different, different press guys, different writers that have come out and said these things?
I could care less what anybody says in May. I'm going to be completely honest. If we're still saying if we're still having these same talking points by the end of August, okay, maybe. But I mean, these guys, I mean, they're not, especially like Jaden Daniels. That's not an NFL playbook, right? It's going to take time. Give them 3 months working with players they've never been with before. You know, it's not like Patrick Mahomes or whatever. Yeah, he's going to look great, right? He's been with these guys for 5 years, right? He's a professional. These guys aren't. Give them time and just whatever. They're not even, you know, doing. Are they even in OTAs yet? Is this just voluntary
no,
stuff?
OTAs
right?
just started. OTAs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just voluntary stuff.
Yes,
so, I mean, it's, you know, it may not even have all your guys there. I don't care about any reports coming out of anywhere, you know, right now. This is just stuff to placate the, you know, feed the monkey, if you will, a little bit, chase the dragon. It's all that stuff. Whatever you're saying is, I don't read anything into anything that comes out in May. That's why I don't do any work right now.
Well, you're chasing the dragon. So my chase here is who was the steal of the first round in your opinion?
I think it was the Colts getting Leatu Latu, the edge rusher from UCLA, the first defensive player picked 15 players into the draft, was my number 3 player on my board. I comped his play style to sparring Mike Tyson. His hand usage is so fast and violent. He has counter moves to set up counter moves. He dominated the last year at UCLA. His sack production has gone up each year. The only thing that anybody had negative to say about him was the medicals, and obviously a lot of teams probably cleared him. He was medically disqualified from a neck issue at Washington. They wouldn't clear him. UCLA did, and he has had no issues since. And he's just all around just a good dude. Almost became a professional rugby player until UCLA let him on the team. So he's just a good story. He's a great player. He tested like a freak. I think he's a steal of the first round.
Yeah, you were mentioning all these defensive players falling. You saw a big run of the corners at the end of that first round too. A lot of teams like the Lions and Eagles getting steals at those positions. Are you surprised at that many defensive players, especially corners, which are thought of as a premier position now, even in the top 5, falling like that?
I mean, in the history of the NFL draft, we've never seen a run of more than 7 players on one side of the ball. And we started this draft with 14 offensive players. It's just baffling. There was only, 9 defensive players selected in the first round at all. It's just crazy the way the draft fell this year. That won't happen next year based off of everything I've seen so far. I don't think we're going to wait till pick 15 to see a defensive player selected in 2025. But it was wild. The Eagles getting Quinyon Mitchell, just awesome. The Lions, saying, you know what, we're not waiting around. We're trading up to get Terry and Arnold. And then the Eagles coming back with Cooper DeJean in the second round. It's got a sting for Giant fans, I guess, to see the Eagles be that successful in the draft. But
they've been like that for the last 3 years. They've been successful in the draft.
Right. And that's why they stay good.
We are talking to Draft Countdown NFL analyst Brian Bosarge. You know, Brian, you look, and you mentioned the Lions. I think the Lions, all they needed to do was fix up that secondary, and I think they're going to be the favorites to come out of the NFC. I really think their stack. Laporta looks like a star. He's the up-and-coming superstar in the league. I think he's the next Travis Kelce when Kelce decides to, pack it up or hang out with the Swifties or whatever the hell he's trying to do.
And they're going to do their island wedding in 3 years.
Yeah, who knows what they're going to do. But I think the Lions did very well, but the team that really stuck out to me was the Pittsburgh Steelers. What were your thoughts of the Pittsburgh Steelers draft?
I didn't like it. I didn't like to see it, I should say, as I'm a Bengals fan, so not a fan of seeing the Steelers succeed. But no, they basically stood pat with all their picks and just hit them. Hit every one of them, getting Troy Fautanu, who is, I think, plug and play as an offensive tackle for them. Then coming back with Zach Frazier, who may end up being the best center in this draft class. Roman Wilson, perfect slot receiver for Pittsburgh. And then Peyton Wilson, if healthy, and that's a big if here. The man doesn't have ACLs in his knees anymore, but still managed to run 4.43 with no ACLs. So take that for what it's worth. I think he's, has a chance to be one of the better Steeler linebackers they've had in some time. And that's the 3rd round pick. And then 4th round pick, Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State, I think is a guy, maybe not immediately, but I think at some point as a rookie could start on the interior of their offensive line. So if you can get 5 starters out of your draft class, that's a home run in my book.
Yeah, so since you're a Bengals fan, we'll ask about the T. Higgins rumors that have been happening for months now. A lot of people thought he could have been traded at the draft. Now are saying, oh, they're not going to sign him until maybe August or something like that, which is crazy.
They're not signing him.
It's crazy to think. So he's playing on the franchise tag. What do you think is going to happen with that whole scenario, and what would you do if you were the Bengals GM?
He's going to play on the franchise tag.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to sign the tender and get paid $21 million. He's a 2nd round pick that's never had a contract. Never had a big contract. Is he going to turn down $21 million? No, he is not. Now, what I think, I'm not saying it will happen, but financially speaking for the Bengals could be very smart is if they franchise tag him again next year. Because that number only goes up $6 million. So then basically you've signed him to a 2-year, $47 million contract, which feels like a going rate for a top wide receiver these days. And even for T. Higgins, even after that, he still would enter free agency in his age 27 season, even if they tagged him twice. It's 26 if he goes after this season. He's going to play on a franchise tag. The Bengals won't tag him again. That's just not what they do. And he'll enter free agency next year, get the bag, and the Bengals will get a 3rd round pick in the 26th draft. That's exactly the scenario that's going to happen.
It's interesting with the Bengals because I love the Bengals this year, especially if Joe Burrow is healthy. They're in the best division in football. They're in the best division. The North is the best division in football. You have Pittsburgh that's going to be loaded this year. They actually have quarterbacks, not a quarterback, but quarterbacks. I'm not a big Russell Wilson fan. I hope Justin Fields wins that job. That's just my opinion. But Baltimore, obviously, they're really, really good. And the Browns, they had the best coach in the league last year, and I think the best defense in the league. They had an interesting draft too. I think out of all the teams in the draft, I think they struck out. I think the Browns draft was not that good. That's just my opinion. What are your thoughts to the division, the North Division, moving forward this year? Do you think Pittsburgh is going to be the team to beat in the North, or do you think it's Baltimore, or do you think it's your Bengals?
I mean, I may come off a little homerish here, but I think the Bengals are the team to beat. If not, it's Baltimore. The Bengals get the 4th place schedule this year. I mean, that's the benefit of going 8-9, almost making a year. They went into week 17 last year and almost made the playoffs. They were like 1 game out. They're a Tyler Boyd drop touchdown pass away from making the playoffs, and that was in the Houston game earlier in the season. I mean, if they win that game, they're 9-8. I think they're in the playoffs. So, I mean, and that was with Jake Browning quarterbacking half the games.
Mm-hmm.
Their talent, their roster is just so talented. Baltimore, I'm curious to see what Derrick Henry and how that kind of changes things for them a little bit. But looking at the Bengals schedule, I think anything less than 12-5 is a disappointment for me looking at their schedule. And Baltimore, I think, should be in or around that. Cleveland, it wholly depends on Deshaun Watson, right? If Deshaun Watson doesn't play better than he has in the last 1.5 to 2 years, they're screwed. Doesn't matter how good their team is. And the Browns have one of the better rosters overall in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to get Deshaun Watson right, and it just hasn't happened yet. So for them, that's like their main hang-up, right? It has to be him. And Pittsburgh, I think I'm not saying they're a bad team. I think they're an 8-9 team. Or I'm sorry, they'll be 9-8 because Mike Tomlin's the coach, and that's just what happens. But I think they're the 4th best team in the division. But I could see that, them coming up at some point.
I love Pittsburgh this year. I think their schedule works their way. And yes, the Bengals, their schedule fits as long as Joe Burrow is 100% healthy. They're in a very good position. There's no question that they are.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about the two of your rivals, or newer rivals, the Bills and the Chiefs, both making an interesting trade. A lot of people were bashing the Bills. Oh, why'd you let the Chiefs trade up for Xavier Worthy? Then the Bills go back in the second round and get Keon Coleman, which a lot of people were down on.
Why didn't they draft Xavier Worthy?
So, yeah, what were your thoughts to that whole process, that whole decision-making on those sides?
I don't disagree with the people that were saying, why would you make the trade with the Chiefs unless you just don't feel threatened by Xavier Worthy? But I think he fits the Chiefs well just because he's of the speed. It's just, something they haven't really had, that top end guy since they traded Tyreek Hill. Now they've got him, Hollywood Brown, and a few other guys that just run really fast. So it's anxious to see how that goes. Kansas City's obviously the team to beat in the AFC until they're not. So that's just the way it is. As far as Buffalo goes, I'm anxious to see how they do. They've kind of, I'm not saying fell back a little bit, but they're going to have a tougher time this year. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, they'll have a tougher time in the division with the Jets. They'll have a tough time to deal with the U.S. 4x100 relay team in Miami. And, it's now the Patriots are terrible and shouldn't win a division game, but Buffalo should be division contenders and at worst probably the 6th or 7th team in the AFC in the playoffs.
I think the two teams to beat in the AFC East is the Jets and Miami. I'm questioning what Miami's going to do because I don't know who their defensive coordinator really is. So their defense might not be they lost Wilkins in the offseason. That's a lot of people questioning why they let him go, but they had a pretty decent draft. Miami did pretty well in the draft. They added some pieces there, but the Jets, I mean, as far as talent is concerned, I'm not saying this because I'm a Jet fan. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I mean, how many teams are better when it comes to talent, when it comes to roster than the Jets? I mean, Buffalo has no secondary. They lost their whole secondary in the offseason to free agency, and their wide receiving core. They lost Diggs. They lost Gabe Davis. They have a guy like Keon Coleman, who some people thought was a third-round draft pick. I like him. He's a Seminole. I think he'll be good because he's a Seminole, but some people say he doesn't have lightning fast speed. His hands are skeptic, and they said that he's not the best route runner. So where is Buffalo better than they were last year? I think they're a lot worse.
I wouldn't say they're a lot worse, but I think they're at least as good as they were last year. Not at receiver, but that's where you lean on your quarterback, right? And if Josh Allen's a top 5 quarterback in the league, like a lot of people say he is, then the quarterback will carry the team. It's the whole truck trailer argument. As a quarterback, are you a truck or are you a trailer? Do you pull everybody with you or do you need somebody to pull you? I think Josh Allen is the truck in this scenario, like Joe Burrow, like, Patrick Mahomes. I think they all pull everybody with him. And Aaron Rodgers was for most of his career. Is he still that guy? We'll see. But, like somebody like Kirk Cousins, I think, is the trailer where he needs to be surrounded by talent to get them to where they need to go.
I was going to ask about the 49ers as well, also in the wide receiver rumors. They draft Ricky Pearsall in the first round, and then a lot of people thought that they were going to trade one of their other big guys after that. So now with all three of them there, do you think they expect them all to be there this season and long-term?
You don't hear any more about that, do you? Because that was kind of like a hot button topic there on night one of the draft, and then it kind of died off, and you haven't heard anything else about it. I think they're going to go into August with all three. I was surprised at Pearsall. I love Ricky Pearsall. I thought he was a great player, and I would have loved to have seen him as a mid-second round. I could have seen it. Still, even then, that might have been a little high for my blood. But him going in the first round is, if he's your guy, go get your guy. But I think they go into the season with all three guys there and see what happens.
Well, that was their problem last year, especially in the Super Bowl. They didn't have a weapon. They had two guys that everybody expected to really appear and show up. Ayuk looked like crap in the Super Bowl, and Deebo Samuel, wasn't healthy. So they depended on Kittle and they depended on their running game, and And let's be honest, they stopped running the ball in the second half because that's what Shanahan likes to do in the second half. He likes to run the ball like crazy in the first half and stop running the ball in the second half, which cost him that game. So I think Pearsall gives them another weapon, gives them a third threat. If one of these guys go down, they have another weapon. I don't know much about Pearsall. I didn't watch him a lot this year, but I heard he's lightning fast and he's a good route runner, and that's what they like. They like guys that are good route runners.
Yeah, Pearsall's a big slot, essentially, is what he is for me. And that's why I think he fits in with the 49ers. Well, he's got tremendous hands, and he can go up and get a pass. Against South Carolina this past year was kind of where he jumped out to me, where he single-handedly kind of took that game over in the fourth quarter and carried Florida to that win over South Carolina. Pearsall looked great at the Senior Bowl as a route runner and he creates his own separation. He doesn't, need to be schemed open. So transferred from Arizona State to Florida, and wasn't a whole lot of Florida highlights this year, but Pearsall was one of them.
So I want to ask about one player in the third round or later that you think was a gem, like going to be the steal of the draft, and a first round pick that you didn't like.
Ooh, let's see. Third round or later. How about your Jets there, Braylon Allen in the fourth round?
Yeah,
I had him a mid-second round grade. I think Braylon Allen is going to get a lot of carries early as a rookie, along with Breece Hall there. So I like that pick for the Jets. RIP Izzy Abanikanda, I guess, but first round that other than Ricky Pearsall, guy that got drafted, I'm not a big JJ McCarthy guy. And I know he's got a lot of fans in draft circles, but I was not a fan of his at all coming in. He was 60th on my board. I had him graded similar to how I had Daniel Jones graded coming out, and Josh Allen for that matter. Now, Josh Allen and Daniel Jones have taken opposite paths as far as that goes, but I saw Josh Allen at the Senior Bowl almost being a 10-year-old kid in the head because he was just sailing passes and he was throwing them as hard as he can, but he was going over the little net with the circles in it that they throw in, and he just was sailing it over it and almost hit somebody. I'm sitting there watching this guy at practice. I'm like, there's no way this guy's an NFL quarterback. He was like a 54% completion percentage at Wyoming or something. It's like, there's no way this isn't going to work out. And it has, to his credit. So, but can JJ McCarthy work out? Sure. But, he's going to a good spot. I'll give him that.
Last question for me, my friend. Who do you think was the best defensive player in this draft, and who was the steal defensive player drafted in the later parts of the draft?
Well, I had Latu at third overall on my board. I had Dallas Turner fourth overall on my board. So those were my top two defensive players. They both ended up, coming off the board at 15 and 17, respectively. Defensive player later on that I thought was good value. The Ravens getting Adiza Isaac, edge rusher from Penn State. I had him 41 on my board. They got him at 93. So later on, you can go TJ Tampa, cornerback from Iowa State. Maybe his testing kind of pushed him down. Guess who gets him? He's 49 over on my board. Guess who gets him at pick 130? The Ravens. It's what they do.
Yeah, they had the third round linebacker fall them last year that we thought was a first round pick. Nate Wiggins, who I think a lot of people thought was one of the better corners. So yeah, they always get that. All right, just general winners and losers teams wise. My last question.
I thought overall I like the Eagles. I like the Lions, what they did. Both of those teams we've talked about. Team maybe we haven't talked about a little bit. The Arizona Cardinals. I thought just when you have as many picks as they did, which was 12, hard not to, make an impact, but they drafted impact players like Marvin Harrison Jr., getting Darius Robinson to fill the J.J. Watt spot on their defense. Then high upside corner Max Melton getting Trey Benson, I think is going to be their RB1 at some point as a rookie. And just getting some depth guys later on, they needed all those guys, and because their roster also quite bad. So, having 12 draft picks is a good way to fill those holes.
Brian, we really appreciate the time. You're fantastic. Keep up the good work with our friend, Mr. Hallam. And we'll talk to you soon. I'm really glad that we got you on the show. I would love to get both of you on the show, and we can go tick for tack and argue our points and talk a little bit about the football season. Maybe we'll reach out to both of you guys in the near future, very soon, near future, and talk about the football season.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Brian Bosarge, ladies and gentlemen, draft countdown NFL analyst, fantastic personality as always. The partner of our friend Hallam.
Yes.
So,
one's a Bengals fan, one's a Steelers fan. A little AFC North rivalry going.
there you go. I mean, it's been a great show, Speedy. You forgot to flex.
I forgot to flex.
You have to flex.
Why?
I want you to flex.
Why?
You have to flex.
There you go.
What are you showing your armpit or something? What the hell was that?
I don't know.
You staking people up? What the hell are you doing?
I don't know.
Flex. Give us a flex.
I don't know.
Flex. Show up. Show everybody your muscles.
They don't exist.
Yeah, they do. You have muscles. Everybody's got muscles.
Okay, they technically exist. From scientific terminologies, they technically exist.
You know, your private area is a muscle. You know that, right?
Thank you for knowing.
Zero interest in putting balls into a knot.
That was good. I'll give you that one, Scoops.
All right, Speedy, I need to see you flex.
If you care that much.
Both hands.
Oh,
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Squeeze it. Do one of those. Show your forearm. There you go. You look like you had a stick up your ass, you know?
You might be right at this rate. Who knows?
I mean, who do you got winning this game tonight?
I picked Florida originally, but let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers. All right, man. If the Rangers lose, Pinky?
What?
If the Rangers,
Why would you be encouraging for the Rangers players to lose their pinkies?
No. I didn't say the Rangers. If you lose, if the Rangers lose, you have to stick a pinky up your rear end.
Not happening.
Why not?
Because it's disgusting.
Why?
It's disgusting.
It's a part of life.
And you do it if you care so much.
Well, I can't because I'm not a Ranger fan.
That's irrelevant. If you had that,
I don't care who wins the game.
Okay, that should have nothing to do with that. The two are not connected.
If you lost a nail in your rear end, what would you do?
I would try to have somebody get it out with tweezers. Hopefully it doesn't bleed, but you never know.
What about would you let fish do it?
I don't know why that would be geographically convenient, like we were talking about before with fish, but
fish, I think fish would help you.
Okay.
All right. You need like a net or something. You need a fishing pole.
A net.
You know, to get
how
it
did a net get a fingernail out of an ass?
Well, you know, we can ask Conor McGregor.
All right, you go ask Conor McGregor if you ever get in a
what would you think
not
Conor
pension form.
What would you think?
I don't know anything about Conor McGregor besides you hate him.
But do you think Conor would actually help you?
No.
Why?
Because he's an egomaniac.
Maybe his ego would tell him that he wants to help you.
How would Conor McGregor give a rat's ass about helping me?
Just like you said, he doesn't give a rat's ass.
So why would he care?
Anyways, thank you to ex-Rangers and Islanders GM Neil Smith for joining us tonight. I know he was excited about this game, but he's got the Florida Panthers winning. I do too have the Florida Panthers winning this series. I think it goes 6 to 7 games. That's my prediction, but I think it's going to be a long series. I think the Rangers will go tick for tack. It'll be a close series, but in the end, I think the Florida Panthers are the better team. But anyways, thank you to Brian Bosarge for joining us for the first time on our show. He was fantastic. Definitely would love to get him and Hallam on at the same time. But who do we have on tomorrow?
So returning to the show at 8:30, Golden State Warriors play-by-play broadcaster Tim Roy will be on with us. And then at 9:30, our New York Jets friend will be returning, Bilal Powell.
Mr. Powallo. You like that, Powallo? I like it too. Speedy, are you going to catch some footballs from him?
I doubt he could throw a football through our video feed.
Well, why not?
Because that technology doesn't exist. If that was the case, all our guests could come into the studio.
Well, that'd be a good idea. Could you imagine you had like
just suck them out from their cameras?
You like sucking things, right?
Not me. Oh my God. I'm talking about the guests.
You sound like a frat boy.
I'm already here. You don't need to bring me in here.
Well, hold on one second. You just said that you would suck one of the guests.
No!
What did you say?
I said if you just suckered them out of the camera.
Oh, sucker them out.
Yeah.
So how do you sucker somebody out?
It doesn't exist. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
Evolution.
Evolution doesn't exist yet because the technology doesn't exist to pull somebody out of a camera, warp them to another location altogether.
Warp them. Warp them.
That's essentially what you're doing. Our last guest, Brian, lives in Alabama. So you would be using them from Alabama.
Fusing, warping. This is great.
From his camera all the way to here to sit next to me in the studio.
Would you let him sit on your lap if he could be warped into the studio?
No.
Why? If it's something.
It doesn't matter.
Why doesn't it matter?
Because I don't need people to sit on me.
Sit on a lap. You be Santa Claus.
I don't want to be Santa Claus.
You want to be an elf?
No.
Mrs. Claus? Rudolph? Would you rather Rudolph?
Sure, I'll settle for that. Oh, it's like a fly. I could soar. That'd be cool.
I can soar.
That seems like a much more experience-based thing than having to try to manipulate it.
Well, look on the bright side. If you need to get something out of your ass, you got a nose that glows in the dark.
Yeah, that's exactly what everyone was thinking. Yeah, that's exactly what everyone's thinking in the North Pole.
Well, when it's dark, you have to find your way out, right?
Good. Yeah,
You
that
gotta
doesn't involve your ass. What are you thinking that he's going to help some microorganisms get out of my ass? Yeah, you're talking.
Yeah, you're talking.
Talking involves breathing.
Oh, man. He's out of his mind. You're warped.
Again, the technology would be cool, but it doesn't exist.
You're the king of wishful thinking.
Perfect. Nice.
Anyways, thank you to all the fans. Keep listening to us. Remember, you can call the show. Don't be afraid to call the show. We don't have Jeff anymore, being the pain in the ass that he is. Thank God. No Jeff for a couple of weeks. That's always a good sign. Just a little bit, I do miss his craziness. That I do. How about you, Speed? You miss him?
Yeah, it's craziness. It definitely does.
Would you kiss his ass? Oh, my God. I'm just asking.
No!
All right.
That sounds gross.
Well, I'm just asking, would you kiss his ass?
No.
It's gross.
I'm not putting my saliva on Jeff's body.
Well, it doesn't have to be on his body. It could be on
What,
his
I'm not going to chop his ass off. So how else is it not going to be on his body?
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, keep listening to us. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. You know what to do. Keep following us. Keep tuning in, as Crazy Speedy's takes are always something to listen to. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about